There is a unique silence that belongs only to the deepest hours of the night. The house is still, the world outside has surrendered to a temporary truce, and yet you are awake. You lie in the quiet dark, but your mind is a storm of noise. It is a marketplace of unfinished conversations, a ledger of tomorrow's anxieties, a relentless slideshow of things you should have done differently, and a long list of tasks that await you at sunrise. The gentle ticking of a clock on the wall seems to grow louder with each passing moment, not measuring time, but measuring your struggle against it, your futile effort to force the mind into a state of rest. This experience, this feeling of being utterly alone with a mind that refuses to be still, is one of the most profound and quiet agonies of our modern age. We have built a world that runs at a breathless pace, a world that celebrates the hustle, that floods our senses from the moment we wake until the moment we try to sleep. Our mind has become like a smartphone, with too many applications running in the background, growing hot to the touch, its battery draining, its performance sluggish and overwhelmed. Anxiety is no longer a fleeting emotion, but the constant, low-frequency hum beneath the surface of our days. We are told that peace can be bought, that tranquility is a destination we can reach if only we work harder, acquire more, or become a better version of ourselves. But what if the path to peace is not a path of addition, but of gentle subtraction? What if it is not a battle to be won, but a nature to be uncovered? There exists an ancient way, a stream of wisdom that has flowed for thousands of years, offering not a dogma to believe in, but a set of practical, timeless tools for the mind. It doesn't ask you to fight the storm, but to understand the weather. It doesn't demand your faith, but invites your curiosity. These teachings of the Buddha are a gentle hand on a fevered brow, a cool drink of water for a parched soul. This journey we are about to take together, here in the quiet of the night, is an invitation to step onto that path. Think of these words not as a lecture, but as a lullaby for the soul, a soft stream of wisdom to accompany you as you drift, a gentle guide to lead you back to the quiet, spacious home that has always been waiting for you, right within the center of your own being. Our journey begins not with a joyful proclamation, but with a quiet, courageous acknowledgement. The first truth spoken by the Buddha is perhaps the most misunderstood, and yet it is the very doorway through which we must pass to find authentic peace. This truth is simply this: there is suffering in life. In the ancient language, the word is dukkha, but when we hear the word suffering, our minds immediately conjure images of great tragedy, of immense pain, loss, or sickness. And while dukkha certainly includes these things, its meaning is far more subtle, more pervasive, and more intimately familiar to each of us, especially in the quiet moments of a sleepless night. Think of dukkha not as a wound, but as a persistent, low-grade fever of the soul. It is the background hum of dissatisfaction that runs beneath even our most pleasant days. It is the feeling that something is not quite right, that something is missing. It is the subtle anxiety that whispers to you when you achieve a long-sought goal, only to find the happiness it brings is fleeting, and a new desire is already forming in its place. It is the vague restlessness you feel when you are sitting in a comfortable room with nothing to do, and your mind immediately begins to search for a distraction, a screen, a task, anything to avoid simply being present. Dukkha is the discomfort of change, the quiet sorrow of knowing that this beautiful moment will pass, that this feeling of joy will fade, that youth will yield to old age, and that all we hold dear is impermanent. It is the friction of existence itself. In our modern world, we have become experts at avoiding this fundamental truth. We are encouraged, from all sides, to construct a life that denies the existence of dukkha. Advertisements promise us that a new product, a new car, a new phone will finally bring lasting contentment. Social media feeds present a curated illusion of perpetual happiness, success, and effortless beauty, making our own ordinary, messy lives feel somehow deficient. We are told to hustle, to optimize, to constantly strive for more, operating under the false assumption that peace is a destination. We will arrive at once we have accumulated enough achievements or possessions. Yet, this very chase, this constant running away from the baseline reality of dukkha, is what amplifies it. The more we expect life to be a continuous series of highs, the more painful the inevitable lows become. The more we cling to pleasant experiences, the more we suffer when they change and disappear, as they always must. To acknowledge dukkha, therefore, is not an act of pessimism. It is not about surrendering to misery. It is, in fact, an act of profound courage, wisdom, and self-compassion. It is the moment we stop running. It is the moment we turn around and gently, without judgment, look at the nature of our own experience. It is like a doctor making a diagnosis. A good doctor does not tell you that you are flawed or that your illness is your fault. They simply observe the symptoms with a clear and compassionate eye, because a correct diagnosis is the essential first step toward any cure. Acknowledging dukkha is the brave diagnosis of the human condition. It is to say, yes, there is this subtle unease. Yes, there is this restlessness. Yes, happiness is fragile and impermanent. I see this, I accept this, and by accepting it, we rob it of its power over us. The monster we refuse to look at is terrifying. The same monster, seen clearly in the light of awareness, begins to lose its fearsome shape. There is a famous story that illustrates this with beautiful simplicity. It is the story of a young woman named Kisa Gotami. She lived a happy life, and her greatest joy was her infant son. But one day, a tragedy struck, and the child fell ill and died. Kisa Gotami was consumed by a grief so powerful that it bordered on madness. She refused to accept that her son was gone. Clinging to his small, lifeless body, she went from house to house in her village, desperately begging for a medicine that could bring him back to life. Some people turned away from her. Others pitied her, but no one could help. Finally, a wise old man, seeing her profound suffering, told her that he could not give her medicine, but he knew someone who could, the Buddha. Kisa Gotami immediately sought out the Buddha, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded for the miracle cure. The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion and said, "There is only one thing that can help you. Go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed. But it must be taken from a house where no one has ever lost a child, a husband, a parent, or a friend." Filled with a surge of hope, Kisa Gotami rushed back to the village. At the first house, she asked for the mustard seed. The woman of the house was willing to give it, but when Kisa Gotami added the condition, the woman's face fell. "Oh, dear woman," she said, "the living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind me of my deepest grief." At the next house, she received a similar reply, and the next, and the next. She went from door to door, through the entire village, and the story was the same everywhere. Every family had known loss. Every heart had been touched by the sorrow of impermanence. As the sun began to set, Kisa Gotami sat by the side of the road, the village lights flickering on one by one. The truth of her quest finally dawned on her. Her grief was not unique. Her pain, as immense as it felt, was a shared human experience. In that moment of profound realization, her frantic, selfish grief began to soften and transform into a deep, quiet empathy for all living beings. She understood that she was not alone in her suffering. The Buddha's instruction was not a cure for her son, but a cure for her. It was a teaching that guided her from the narrow prison of her own pain into the wide, open space of shared human reality. She gently laid her son to rest and returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed, but with a mind that had begun to understand. This story is our story. Each of us, in our own way, is Kisa Gotami, clinging to something we cannot bear to lose, running from a truth we cannot bear to face. We search for the one house untouched by sorrow, the one life free from dukkha. The wisdom of this first truth is the gentle realization that no such house exists, and in that shared understanding, something incredible happens. We stop feeling like a victim. We stop asking, why me? The acceptance of dukkha connects us to everyone who has ever lived. It is the great equalizer. It is the foundation of compassion. When you truly understand that the person who irritates you, the stranger on the street, the leader you disagree with, are all experiencing their own version of this same fundamental unease, your heart cannot help but soften. So, as you lie here, let yourself feel the truth of this. You do not need to fight the restlessness. You do not need to scold yourself for your anxiety. Simply notice it. Acknowledge it as a part of this human life, like the weather. Can you feel the subtle dukkha in your own body, in your own mind, right now? The desire for this night to be different? The worry about tomorrow? The echo of a past regret? Let it be there. Greet it with the quiet courage of Kisa Gotami at the end of her journey. This is the first step. It is the most important step, because only by looking directly and compassionately at the reality of our condition can we begin to see the path that leads to its cessation. Having now looked at the symptom, we must turn our gentle inquiry to its root, to its cause. If our gentle and courageous diagnosis of life's pervasive unease was the first step, then our second step is one of profound insight, a step that takes us to the very root of the fever. A wise physician, having identified an illness, does not stop there. They seek its origin, its cause, because only by understanding the source can a true and lasting healing occur. The Buddha, in his immense wisdom, did exactly this. He pointed to the origin of our inner turmoil, the engine that drives our restlessness. This second great truth is called samudaya, which simply means the origin or the arising. And the source it points to is a force within our own hearts, a powerful, primal thirst. The word for this is tanha. Tanha does not translate perfectly. It means thirst, but it is more than the simple thirst for water. It is a deep, existential craving, a grasping, a clinging. It is the insatiable fire in the mind that is always seeking something more, something else, something different from what is. Before we go further, it is vital to understand that this is not a condemnation of all desire. To desire food when you are hungry, or warmth when you are cold, or companionship when you are lonely, is natural. It is part of our living nature. The thirst of tanha is different. It has a feverish, desperate quality. It is the kind of desire that makes our happiness conditional. It is the voice that whispers, "I cannot be at peace until I have this," or "I will only be happy if that goes away." It is this clinging, this attachment to outcomes, that forges the chains of our own suffering. The teachings describe three distinct currents in this river of thirst, three faces of tanha. By learning to recognize them in our own experience, we can begin to loosen their grip. The first is perhaps the most obvious, the thirst for sense pleasures. This is the craving for beautiful sights, pleasing sounds, delicious tastes, wonderful smells, and agreeable physical sensations. Our modern world is a grand temple built in honor of this thirst. It is the endless scroll on our phones, our eyes hunting for the next stimulating image, the next entertaining video. It is the desire for the next piece of cake, the next gratifying purchase, the next episode in a series. There is nothing inherently wrong with enjoying these things. The problem arises when they become our primary strategy for happiness. The pleasure they provide is, by its very nature, fleeting. It arrives, it peaks, and it vanishes, often leaving us feeling emptier than before and immediately thirsty for the next hit of stimulation. We become like someone trying to quench a deep thirst by drinking salt water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. This is the endless, exhausting treadmill of consumerism and sensory seeking. The second form of thirst is deeper and speaks directly to the heart of our modern anxiety. It is the thirst for becoming, the craving for existence. This is the desire to construct, solidify, and perpetuate a certain identity for ourselves. It is the desperate need to be someone, to be successful, to be respected, to be seen as intelligent, or attractive, or good. It is the engine behind our relentless ambition, the constant curation of our online personas, the quiet comparison of our own lives to the seemingly perfect lives of others. This thirst for becoming creates a vision of a future, idealized self, and it tells us that our present self is not enough. If only I could get that promotion, it says, then I would be secure and content. If only I could find the perfect partner, then my life would be complete. If only I could lose the weight, or buy the house, or reach that milestone, then I could finally rest. But the destination always recedes as we approach it. We get the promotion, and for a short while there is relief, but soon the thirst re-emerges, now focused on the next rung of the ladder. This craving to become a fixed, permanent, and happy self is in direct conflict with the fluid, impermanent nature of reality. It is like trying to build a solid fortress on the surface of a flowing river. The constant effort required is a source of profound and unending stress. The third face of tanha is the flip side of the coin. It is the thirst for non-existence, for annihilation. This is aversion. It is the craving to get rid of something we find unpleasant. In its most extreme form, it is the desire for self-destruction, but it manifests in our daily lives in countless subtle ways. It is the anger that boils up when someone cuts us off in traffic, a powerful wish for that person and that feeling to just disappear. It is the anxiety we feel before a difficult task and the urge to procrastinate, to numb ourselves with distraction, to push the unpleasantness away. It is the intolerance we feel for our own painful emotions, our sadness, our fear, our jealousy. We want them gone. We declare war on our own inner world, believing that if we can just eliminate all the bad feelings, we will be left with only the good ones. But just as you cannot have a coin with only one side, you cannot have a life with only pleasure and no pain. Pushing away what is unpleasant is as exhausting and futile as clinging to what is pleasant. Both are forms of resistance to reality, and both are powerful sources of dukkha. There is a simple ancient story that captures the essence of this self-inflicted trap. In a forest, a hunter devised a clever way to catch monkeys. He would take a coconut or a hollowed-out gourd and drill a hole in it just large enough for a monkey's open hand to slide through. He would then place some rice or a sweet nut inside the gourd and tie it securely to the base of a tree. Soon, a monkey would come along, smell the treat inside, and slip its hand through the opening. It would grasp the rice, forming a fist. But now, With its hand clenched into a fist, the opening was too small for it to pull its hand out. The monkey would pull and shriek, growing more and more frantic, but it could not get free. The hunter could then simply walk up and capture it. All the monkey ever had to do to be free was to let go. The bars of its cage were not made of iron, but of its own clinging. The hunter did not trap the monkey trapped itself. We are all, in some way, this monkey. We reach our hands into the world and grasp onto a pleasure, an identity, a belief, or a resentment. And then we find we are stuck. We struggle and pull against our circumstances. We blame the gourd. We blame the hunter. We blame the world for our predicament. But the power to be free lies within our own hand. The instruction is simple, though not always easy. Just open your fist. Let go of the desperate clinging. Let go of the idea that this one thing will save you. Let go of the belief that your life must unfold in one particular way. Let go of your war against your own unpleasant feelings. The moment we stop grasping, we are free. This truth is not meant to be a source of guilt or self-blame. It is, in fact, a declaration of our own power. If our suffering were caused by something entirely outside of ourselves, by the stars, by fate, by the actions of other sway, would be helpless victims. But if its root cause, this tāna, this thirst, arises within our own mind, then the solution is also within our own mind. We are not to blame for the thirst itself. It is a deeply conditioned, ancient human habit. But we can become aware of it. We can watch it arise without being swept away by it. We can learn to feel its pull without having to obey its command. This is the beginning of liberation. By seeing clearly how we create our own cages, we also see, for the first time, that the door has been unlocked all along. And this points us toward the third great truth, a truth of profound hope and possibility, the truth that this thirst can be quenched and this suffering can have an end. We have walked a path that required courage. We have stood before the mirror and acknowledged the subtle, pervasive dissatisfaction of our lives, the quiet fever of dukkha. We have looked deeper, beyond the symptom, and found its root cause in the relentless, grasping thirst of the mind, the insatiable fire of tanha. To stop here would be to leave the diagnosis incomplete, to leave the patient without hope. It would be a journey into despair. But this is not where the path ends. In fact, this is where the path truly begins to shine with a brilliant, illuminating light. For the third great truth is the most liberating and hopeful message ever offered to the human heart. It is the truth of Nirodha, a word that means cessation, an end. It is the simple, radical, and life-altering proclamation that the fire of thirst can be extinguished and that the suffering it causes can be brought to a complete and final end. This is the physician's prognosis. It is the confident assurance that a cure not only exists, but that it is fully attainable. This is the light at the end of the tunnel, and it is not a mirage. It is the promise that there is a state of being, a way of experiencing the world, that is free from the frantic cycle of craving and disappointment. This state of ultimate peace and freedom is called nirvana. Like the word dukkha, nirvana is shrouded in misconception. We tend to imagine it as a kind of faraway, ethereal heaven, a paradise one enters after death. But this is not its true meaning. Nirvana is not a place you go to. It is a state you realize. It is a psychological reality that can be experienced right here in this very life. The word itself literally means to extinguish or to blow out, as one would blow out a candle flame. The question then is, what is being extinguished? It is not the self. It is not our personality, our awareness, or our vitality. What is extinguished are the three fires that cause all our suffering: the fire of greed and obsessive desire, the fire of hatred and aversion, and the fire of delusion, the fundamental ignorance of the way things truly are. Imagine your mind, as it so often is in our stressful world, as a house on fire. The flames of desire lick at the walls, making you constantly race towards the next thing you believe will satisfy you. The embers of old resentments and fresh anger smolder in the corners, filling the rooms with toxic smoke, and the thick, black smoke of confusion and misunderstanding clouds your vision, preventing you from seeing things clearly. A mind on fire is a painful place to live. It is hot, agitated, stressful, and chaotic. Nirvana is the state that arises when these fires have been put out. It is when the fuel that feeds the more clinging, our resistance, our misperceptions, no longer supplied. When the fires cease, what is left? Not a cold, empty void, but a profound and radiant peace. The mind that is no longer burning is described as being cool. It possesses a deep, unshakable calm that is not dependent on external circumstances. It is a peace that can withstand the storms of the world because its foundation is internal. The smoke of confusion clears, revealing a brilliant clarity. The mind becomes like a perfectly still, deep lake, reflecting the moon and the stars exactly as they are, without distortion. From this clarity arises wisdom, the ability to see the interconnected nature of life and to act with spontaneous compassion and skill. And finally, there is a sense of immense freedom. This is not the fleeting, chaotic freedom of being able to do whatever you want. It is a much deeper freedom. The freedom from the tyranny of your own reactive habits. Freedom from being jerked around by every desire, every fear, every judgment. It is the freedom of the monkey who has finally opened its fist and released the rice, discovering that the cage was an illusion all along. This peace, this nirodha, is not achieved by finally getting everything you have ever wanted. That is the world's strategy, and we have already seen that it is a path of endless thirst. The happiness that comes from a new achievement or a pleasant experience is fragile. It is conditional. It depends on things outside of ourselves, things that are, by nature, impermanent. The peace of nirvana is unconditional. It does not depend on being healthy, on being wealthy, on being in a relationship, or on being praised by others. It is a peace that can coexist with the inevitable pains and losses of life. It is the deep stillness of the ocean depths, which remains undisturbed even while the surface is churned by wind and waves. This is because the peace of nirodha comes from a radical reorientation. It comes not from satisfying our thirst, but from the cessation of thirst itself. It is the end of the slavery of wanting. Let this possibility sink into your heart. Let it be a balm for the weary parts of your soul. The message of nirodha is that you are not broken. Your anxiety, your stress, your feeling of being overwhelmed, these are not a permanent part of who you are. They are the heat and smoke from a fire, and any fire can be put out. There is a way to live with a mind that is spacious, a heart that is open, and a spirit that is profoundly at rest. This is not a fantasy. It has been the living experience of countless people for over 2.5 millennia. It is the central, guiding promise of this path. It provides the why for our journey. Why would we bother to observe our minds, to practice mindfulness, to cultivate compassion? We do it because we have a deep and abiding trust that there is a shore beyond this ocean of turmoil. This potential for peace is not something you need to acquire from the outside. You don't need to become a different person to find it. The seed of nirvana, the capacity for this cool, clear, and liberated state, is already present within you. It is your deepest nature, temporarily obscured by the clouds of conditioning, like a brilliant sun hidden behind the storm clouds. The spiritual path is not about building something new, but about the patient and gentle work of clearing away the clouds so that the sun that has always been there can finally shine through. So, as you rest here, allow yourself to feel the gentle warmth of this possibility. Allow a sense of hope to arise. A different way of being is available. A life free from the constant pressure of craving and fear is not a distant dream. It is a reality that is beckoning to you. The diagnosis has been made, the cause has been found, and the prognosis is one of complete recovery. The only remaining question is, what is the prescription? What are the practical steps we must take to walk this path from the house on fire to the cool, clear lake of peace? This prescription is the path itself, and we are now ready to take our first steps upon it. We have arrived at a place of profound hope. We have seen that our inner turmoil, our dukkha, has a cause in the grasping nature of the mind, our tanha, and we have been offered the luminous promise of nirodha, the cessation of this turmoil, and the realization of a deep and lasting peace, nirvana. This leaves us with the most practical and pressing question of all. How? If there is a cure for this fever of the soul, what is the prescription? What is the treatment we must follow? The answer to this is the fourth and final noble truth. It is the truth of the path, or Magga. This is the Buddha's blueprint for human flourishing, a guide so practical, so comprehensive, and so psychologically astute that it has remained perfectly relevant for over 25 centuries. This guide is known as the Noble Eightfold Path. When you hear this, do not imagine a linear set of stairs that you must climb one after the other. It is far more holistic and beautiful than that. Imagine, instead, 8 threads that are woven together to create a single, strong, and beautiful tapestry. Or picture the 8 spokes of a wheel, all radiating from a central hub and all essential for the wheel to turn smoothly. These 8 factors of the path support and inform one another, and they are traditionally grouped into 3 sections: wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. The path begins with wisdom, because without a clear sense of direction, any action we take is likely to be misguided. The very first step, the foundational spoke of this great wheel, is called Sama Dithi, which we translate as right view, or perhaps more accurately, wise understanding. Every journey begins with a map and a compass. Right view is that map and compass for our inner world. It is the lens through which we look at reality that allows everything else to come into focus. Without right view, we are like a person lost in a thick forest at night. We can walk with great determination. We can put forth immense effort. But if we are heading in the wrong direction, all our striving will only take us further into the woods. Right view is the act of stopping, waiting for the sun to rise, and getting our bearings. It orients us toward the true north of liberation. So what does it mean to have right view? At its most fundamental level, it means understanding and accepting the framework we have just explored, the 4 noble truths. It is the clear seeing that there is dissatisfaction in our lives, that it is caused by our own craving and clinging, that an end to this dissatisfaction is possible, and that there is a path to get there. It is to move from vaguely feeling that something is wrong to clearly understanding the dynamics of our own minds. But right view goes even deeper. It is the direct seeing of the fundamental nature of reality, what are known as the three marks of existence. These are impermanence, dissatisfaction, and not self. It is the wisdom that sees, not just as an idea, but in our felt experience, that everything is in a constant state of flux, impermanence. It sees that trying to cling to anything in this flow of change inevitably leads to stress and disappointment, dissatisfaction, and most profoundly, it sees that there is no fixed, solid, independent me at the center of our experience that is separate from this flow, not self. This correct perception of reality stands in stark contrast to the common, default views that our society so often promotes. Modern culture often presents us with a set of wrong views. One is the materialistic view that happiness can be found externally, that it is something to be purchased or acquired through status, possessions, or the approval of others. Right view understands that while these things can bring temporary pleasure, true peace is an inside job. Another pervasive wrong view is the worship of the ego. We are taught to build a strong sense of self, to defend our opinions fiercely, to curate our personal brand, and to see ourselves as the supremely important protagonist of our own story. Right view gently dismantles this, revealing the ego to be a flickering, conditioned process rather than a solid entity, allowing for humility, flexibility, and a deep sense of connection with others. There is a wonderful ancient parable that illustrates the difference between wrong view and right view. It is the story of a group of blind men who encounter an elephant for the first time. The king brings them to the palace courtyard, where an elephant is standing. The first man reaches out and touches the elephant's broad, solid side. "Ah," he declares with confidence, "an elephant is very much like a wall." The second man grasps one of the sharp, smooth tusks. "No, you are mistaken," he says. "An elephant is like a spear." The third man happens to take hold of the writhing, muscular trunk. "You are both wrong," he proclaims. "It is clear that an elephant is like a great snake." The fourth man feels a thick, sturdy leg and likens the elephant to a tree trunk, while another, holding the tail, insists it is like a rope. Soon, they are all shouting at one another, each absolutely certain of their own partial experience, each unable to comprehend the perspective of the others. Each of these men is holding a piece of the truth, but because their view is incomplete, they are all fundamentally wrong. They are mistaking a small part for the whole. Wrong view is like being one of these blind men, grasping one small aspect of reality and declaring it to be the entire truth. Right view is the ability to see the whole elephant. It is the spacious, wise perspective that understands that reality is far bigger, more complex, and more mysterious than our limited, conditioned ideas about it. It fosters a sense of intellectual humility, an openness to learning, and a willingness to let go of cherished beliefs when they are shown to be incomplete or unskillful. It is crucial to understand that right view is not a set of beliefs that you are asked to accept with blind faith. This path is not a dogma. The Buddha was not interested in followers who simply believed what he said. He consistently encouraged a spirit of free and open inquiry. Right view is offered as a working hypothesis, a lens that you are invited to try on for yourself. The remaining 7 factors of the path are the grand experiment designed to verify this hypothesis in the laboratory of your own life. You are invited to look at the world and at your own mind through the lens of impermanence, dissatisfaction, and not self. You are asked to live as if compassionate action matters, as if your inner state has a direct effect on your outer world. The invitation is always, come and see for yourself. Does this way of seeing lead to more peace or more conflict? Does it lead to more freedom or more entanglement? The proof is in the practice. As we begin to align our lives with this wise understanding, we find naturally that our intentions begin to shift as well, leading us to the next beautiful thread in this unfolding tapestry. If right view is the map that shows us the landscape of reality, then right intention is the conscious act of choosing our destination and turning our feet in that direction. A map is useless if we do not resolve to follow it. Once our perspective begins to shift, even slightly, it has a natural and profound effect on the quality of our inner world. The way we see things directly shapes the way we think about them, and the way we think becomes the rudder that steers the ship of our life. This second step on the path is called sammasankappa, which can be translated as right intention, right resolve, or right thought. It is the heart's aspiration, the gentle but firm commitment to align our inner life with the wisdom we are beginning to uncover. Imagine that your mind is a garden. Throughout the day, seeds are blown into this garden on the winds of experience. A seed of anger from a frustrating encounter, a seed of jealousy from something you see online, a seed of anxiety about the future, a seed of kindness from a warm smile. Some of these seeds are like beautiful flowers, while others are like invasive weeds. We do not always have control over which seeds land in our garden. Thoughts can arise unbidden, but we have absolute power over what happens next. We have the choice of which seeds to water, which to tend to, which to give the sunlight of our attention. Right intention is the art and practice of becoming a wise gardener of the mind. It is the conscious choice to cultivate the flowers and to gently, without violence, remove the weeds or simply allow them to wither from a lack of attention. The teachings of the Buddha suggest we focus our cultivation on 3 specific kinds of wholesome intentions, 3 beautiful flowers to plant in our garden. These intentions act as direct antidotes to the 3 poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion that fuel the fires of our suffering. The first is the intention of renunciation, or perhaps better understood as the intention of letting go. The word renunciation can sound severe, as if it means giving up everything that brings us joy. But this is a misunderstanding. It does not mean a life of harsh austerity. It means the wise and beautiful intention to let go of our feverish, painful attachment to things. It is the intention to find our happiness, not in endlessly acquiring more, but in appreciating the beauty of simplicity. It is a gentle turning away from the thirst for sensory pleasure and the craving to become someone important. It is the resolve to uncomplicate our lives, to untie the knots of desire that bind us. Think of the feeling of relief when you finally put down a heavy bag you have been carrying for a long time. The intention of letting go is the resolve to put down the heavy bags of obsessive, wanting, and clinging that we carry around in our minds all day. It is a direct and gentle antidote to the fire of greed. The second wholesome intention is the intention of goodwill or loving kindness. This is the clear and powerful antidote to the poison of hatred, anger, resentment, and ill will. It is the conscious cultivation of a warm, friendly, and open heart towards all of existence, beginning with ourselves. So often, our default mental habit is one of judgment. We judge ourselves harshly for our perceived flaws, and we judge others for theirs. The intention of goodwill is a commitment to interrupt this habit. It is the resolve to meet our own imperfections with kindness. It is the wish, held gently in the heart, that all beings, without exception, may be happy and well. When you feel a thought of irritation or resentment arise towards someone, the practice of right intention is to notice it, and then to consciously, softly, plant the seed of a different thought next to it. May they be well. may they be free from suffering. This is not about forcing yourself to like everyone or approve of all actions. It is about recognizing that holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. The intention of goodwill is the decision to put down the hot coal. The third beautiful flower we cultivate is the intention of harmlessness or compassion. This is the antidote to cruelty, aggression, and indifference. It is the deep resolve to not cause harm to any living being, in thought, word, or deed. While the intention of goodwill is the wish for others to be happy, the intention of compassion, or karuna, is the wish for them to be free from suffering. It is a deep empathy that recognizes the dukkha in others. This intention makes our mind a safe place for ourselves and for everyone else. It understands that a violent thought is the seed of a violent word, and a violent word is the seed of a violent action. The practice of right intention is to guard the gateway of our mind and to make it a sanctuary of non-harming. When we cultivate this intention, we begin to see all beings as fellow sufferers in this shared human condition, and our capacity for cruelty simply melts away, replaced by a tender and active concern. There is a timeless story, told in many cultures, that perfectly illustrates this principle of choosing our intentions. An old Cherokee chief is teaching his grandson about life. He says, "A fight is going on inside me. It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego." He continued, "The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." The same fight is going on inside you, and inside every other person, too. The grandson thought about it for a minute, and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The old chief simply replied, "The one you feed." This is the very heart of right intention. Our minds produce thoughts of both wolves every single day. We are not to blame for the appearance of the wolf of anger. It is a conditioned, ancient part of our brain. But we are responsible for which wolf we choose to feed. Do we feed the wolf of resentment by replaying an argument over and over in our minds? Or do we feed the wolf of peace by consciously turning our attention to gratitude? Do we feed the wolf of anxiety by endlessly imagining worst-case scenarios? Or do we feed the wolf of serenity by bringing our attention back to the simple, calming rhythm of our own breath? This is a deeply empowering practice. It frees us from the belief that we are the helpless victims of our own thoughts. We are not. We are the gardeners. We are the ones who hold the food. You can begin this practice in the simplest way. When you first awaken in the morning, before you reach for your phone, before the day's worries rush in, you can lie quietly for a moment and consciously set an intention. It can be very simple. Today, I will feed the wolf of kindness. Today, my intention is to let go of what I cannot control. Today, I will meet whatever comes with a peaceful heart. Setting this resolve is like setting the rudder of your ship in the morning. Even if the winds of the day blow you slightly off course, your rudder is still pointed toward your chosen destination, and it becomes much easier to gently guide yourself back. Right intention is the quiet, moment-to-moment work of cultivating a beautiful mind. And a beautiful mind will, as naturally as a flower turns to the sun, produce beautiful speech and beautiful actions. As the garden of our mind begins to blossom with wholesome intentions, the fragrance of that garden is first carried into the world on the breath of our words. Our speech, our samavaka, is the most direct and immediate expression of our inner state. It is the bridge between our private thoughts and the shared world we inhabit with others. Words are thoughts made audible, intentions given form, and they possess a power that is almost magical in its intensity. With our words, we can build a sanctuary of trust and understanding, or we can lay waste to a relationship in a matter of seconds. We can soothe a wounded heart, or we can inflict a wound that may never fully heal. The practice of right speech is the art of wielding this incredible power with wisdom, mindfulness, and compassion. This is not a practice of censorship or of being unnaturally silent. It is a practice of purification. It is about transforming our speech from an unconscious, reactive habit into a conscious, skillful, and healing art form. The teachings outline this art through 4 main commitments, 4 gates through which our words should pass before they are released into the world. These are not rigid rules, but gentle reminders, invitations to bring a new level of awareness to the sounds we create. The first gate is the commitment to abstain from false speech. At its simplest, this means not telling lies. It is a deep commitment to truthfulness, to being a person whose word can be trusted. When we are truthful, our relationships are built on a solid foundation, and our own mind becomes simple and at ease. Lies, even so-called white lies, create a world of complexity and stress. We must remember the lies we've told and live in fear of being discovered. A commitment to truthfulness dissolves this anxiety, but this principle goes deeper than merely avoiding overt falsehoods. It is also an invitation to be authentic, to stop pretending to be someone we are not in order to gain approval. And most profoundly, it is a commitment to be truthful with ourselves, to stop a lifetime of self-deception, to look at our own motivations and failings with an honest and compassionate eye. The second gate is the commitment to abstain from divisive speech. These are words that poison human relationships. It is the act of speaking ill of someone behind their back, of carrying tales from one person to another to create discord, of using words to drive a wedge between friends, family members, or colleagues. In our modern world, this practice is rampant. It fuels office politics, it tears families apart, and it defines much of the toxic discourse we see online. The practice of right speech is to become a force for harmony. It is to make the conscious choice not to participate in slander or backbiting. When you hear gossip, you can simply let it stop with you. You can choose not to pass it on. Instead of using words to build walls, we can use them to build bridges of understanding. We can make it our practice to speak of the good qualities of others and to use our words to heal rifts, not to create them. The third gate is the commitment to abstain from harsh speech. These are words spoken with the intention to wound. They are the arrows of anger dipped in the poison of ill will. Yelling, insulting, belittling, using cruel sarcasm, of these are forms of violence. They may not leave a visible bruise, but they can scar a person's heart for a lifetime. Harsh speech rarely communicates effectively. It simply escalates conflict and forces the other person to become defensive. The practice here is one of gentleness. It is to learn to speak kindly and courteously, even when we are discussing something difficult. It is possible to be firm and clear without being cruel. It is possible to disagree without being disagreeable. Right speech invites us to feel the anger arise, to breathe with it, to let its initial fiery energy subside, and then to choose words that are aimed at resolution, not at retaliation. It is the practice of making our voice a source of comfort and safety for those around us. The fourth and final gate is perhaps the most subtle, and for many of us, the most challenging. It is the commitment to abstain from idle chatter. This is speech that is pointless, that serves no real purpose other than to fill silence. It is gossip about people we don't know, endless speculation about trivial matters, complaining for the sake of complaining. This kind of speech clutters the mind and dissipates our energy. It keeps our awareness locked on the surface of life, preventing us from resting in a deeper quietude. This does not mean that all light-hearted conversation is wrong. The sharing of joy is a beautiful thing, but this principle asks us to be mindful of our motivation. Are we speaking to truly connect, or are we just making noise because we are uncomfortable with silence? The alternative to idle chatter is what is known as noble silence. This is not an empty, awkward silence, but a rich, restorative, and aware silence. It is the practice of speaking only when our words are an improvement upon that silence. There is a powerful story that illustrates the profound responsibility that comes with our words. A man in a village had a bad habit of spreading rumors. He went to the wise elder of the town and confessed, feeling great remorse for the harm he had caused. He asked what he could do to make amends. The elder told him, "Go to your home, find a pillow full of feathers, take it to the highest hill in the village on a windy day, cut it open, and release all the feathers to the wind." The man did as he was told. He then returned to the elder and asked, "Is that all?" "No," the elder replied. "Now for the difficult part. Go back and gather every single one of those feathers and put them back in the pillow." The man was aghast. "That's impossible," he cried. "The wind has carried them everywhere. I will never be able to find them all." The wise elder looked at him kindly and said, "Exactly. And so it is with your words. Once they have left your mouth, you can never fully take them back. They are carried on the wind to places you will never know, and you can never undo the effect they have had." This ancient story is more relevant today than ever before. In our digital age, our words are not just carried on the wind, they are amplified and preserved forever in texts, emails, and social media posts. A thoughtless comment made in a moment of anger can be screenshotted and shared with thousands, its harmful impact multiplied beyond our comprehension. The practice of right speech calls us to bring this same mindful quality to our keyboard as we would to our spoken words. Before you hit send, you can pause. You can ask yourself, is this true? Is this kind? Is this necessary? Is this the right time? Right speech is a profound practice of mindfulness in action. It purifies our relationship with others, and, most importantly, it purifies our own mind. As we cease to use words to harm, we cease to water the seeds of anger and cruelty within ourselves. As our speech becomes more truthful, gentle, and purposeful, it begins to shape a reality around us that is more peaceful and harmonious. Our words pave the path for our deeds, leading us naturally to the next step, the practice of living an ethical and compassionate life through our actions. Our journey inward, into the landscape of our minds, now turns outward once more. Having planted a garden of wholesome intentions, and having learned to let our speech be the sweet fragrance of that garden, we arrive at the most tangible expression of our inner world, our actions. This third step on the path, which belongs to the category of ethical conduct, is called samma kammanta, or right action. It is the practice of embodying our wisdom and compassion in our physical presence, of making our very movements through the world a source of safety and peace for all beings. Our actions are our intentions made visible. They are the final, undeniable proof of what we truly value. Underpinning the entire principle of right action is a natural law as fundamental as gravity. This is the law of karma. In the West, This word is often misunderstood as a system of cosmic judgment, of reward and punishment, meted out by some unseen force. But its original meaning is far simpler and more profound. The word karma literally means action or deed. The law of karma is simply the law of cause and effect as it applies to our intentional actions. It is a law of nature, not the decree of a judge. The Buddha used a simple agricultural metaphor to explain it. What you sow, you shall reap. If you plant the seed of an acorn, an oak tree will grow. If you plant the seed of a thistle, you will get a thistle. You will never plant an acorn and get a thistle. The universe is not punishing you with a thistle. It is simply responding to the seed you planted. So it is with our actions. An action rooted in an intention of generosity, kindness, and clarity is a wholesome seed. The fruit it bears will be peace, connection, and happiness for both ourselves and others. An action rooted in an intention of greed, hatred, or confusion is an unwholesome seed. The fruit it inevitably bears will be suffering, conflict, and pain. This understanding is deeply empowering. It means we are not passive victims of fate. We are the farmers of our own lives. With every single action, we are planting a seed, and in every moment, we have the choice of what kind of seed to plant. Right action is the conscious and skillful practice of planting seeds of kindness and wisdom. The practice of right action is traditionally guided by three core principles. Like the other steps on the path, these are not rigid commandments, but invitations to a deeper mindfulness and compassion in our physical lives. The first pillar of right action is to abstain from taking life. This is the foundation of a non-violent life. It begins with the obvious commitment not to kill another human being, but its spirit extends much further. It is a deep and abiding reverence for life in all its forms. It encourages us to see the spark of existence in animals and insects, to minimize the harm we cause to other creatures whenever possible. In our modern age, this principle speaks powerfully to our relationship with the environment. To pollute our rivers, to destroy our forests, to drive species to extinction, these are all forms of taking life, of causing harm on a massive scale. Right action invites us to become stewards and protectors of this precious planet, to tread lightly upon the earth. And perhaps most intimately, this principle of non-harming applies to ourselves. We abstain from taking our own life, not just in the final sense, but in the small daily acts of self-destruction, abusing our bodies with unhealthy habits, or tormenting our minds with negative self-talk. It is a commitment to cherish this life we have been given. The second pillar is to abstain from taking what is not given. This is the practice of non-stealing, and it too extends far beyond simply not robbing a bank. To take what is not freely offered is a form of violence, a violation of another's trust and security. But we can steal in many subtle ways. We can steal someone's time by being chronically late and disrespectful of their schedule. We can steal their ideas at work, presenting them as our own. In our hyper-connected world, we can steal someone's attention by checking our phone while they are pouring their heart out to us. The positive practice that arises from this principle is that of generosity, or dana. Right action encourages us to cultivate a spirit of giving rather than a spirit of taking. This means being generous not only with our material possessions, but with our time, our energy, our kind words, and our full, undivided attention. It is the practice of looking for opportunities to contribute, to help, and to support, thereby planting seeds of abundance and trust in the world. The third pillar of right action is to abstain from sexual misconduct. This is a principle that calls for a profound respect for ourselves and others within the powerful and intimate realm of sexuality. It is not a call for prudishness or the denial of our natural human desires. It is a call to ensure that our sexual expression is not a source of harm. This means refraining from any sexual act that involves coercion, deception, or exploitation. It is a commitment not to use another person's body simply for our own gratification, disregarding their feelings and well-being. For those in committed relationships, it is the practice of fidelity and honesty, recognizing the deep pain that infidelity can cause. At its core, this principle asks us to bring mindfulness and kindness into our intimate lives, to ensure that our sexual encounters are based on mutual consent, care, and a respect for the dignity of everyone involved. It is about ensuring that this powerful energy is a source of connection and joy, not of suffering and harm. Living by these principles may sound daunting, as if we are bound to fail. But right action is not about achieving an impossible standard of perfection. It is a practice. The goal is not to be a perfect person, but to be a person who is continually, mindfully, and compassionately practicing. The value lies in the sincerity of our intention. Every moment of our day becomes an opportunity for this practice. The way you drive your car can be right action or wrong action. The way you prepare a meal, the way you perform your tasks at work, the way you close a door, all of these can be done with mindfulness and care, or with carelessness and aggression. Washing the dishes can become a meditation on cleanliness and service. Walking through a park can become a practice of non-harming, being careful where you step. Every small, conscious choice to act with kindness is a seed of peace planted in the world. Our actions do not occur in a vacuum. Imagine dropping a small stone into a perfectly still pond. The ripples spread out from that single point, reaching every corner of the pond's surface. Our actions are like that stone. A single small act of thoughtless harm can create ripples of pain that spread far beyond our initial intention. But equally, a single, small act of genuine kindness can send out ripples of warmth and hope that touch lives in ways we may never know. Right action is the conscious understanding of this truth. It is the deliberate choice to be a force that sends ripples of safety, trust, and compassion into the world. As we make our very bodies an instrument of peace, we are naturally led to consider the largest portion of our active lives, our work, and how we can make our livelihood a seamless extension of our deepest values. The ripples of our actions spread outward into every corner of our lives, and for most of us, there is no larger pond, no greater field of action than the work we do to sustain ourselves. We devote the best hours of our days, the best years of our lives, to our livelihood. It is the primary way we interact with society and the world. Therefore, the path to a peaceful and ethical life must inevitably pass through the marketplace, the office, the workshop, and the studio. This fifth step on the path is called Sama Ajiva, or right livelihood. It is the practice of applying the principles of non-harming and compassion to the way we earn our living, ensuring that our work is a seamless expression of our deepest values, rather than a contradiction of them. In a world that so often defines success in purely financial terms, this principle invites a radical and healing re-evaluation of our relationship with work. It asks a simple but profound question: does the way I sustain my life cause harm to myself or to others? The practice of right livelihood begins with an encouragement to steer clear of professions that are, at their very core, based on creating suffering. The classical texts list 5 specific kinds of trade to avoid, dealing in weapons, in living beings, such as slavery or animal trafficking, in meat production, in poisons, and in intoxicants. In our complex modern world, we can expand upon the spirit of this principle. A livelihood based on deception, such as fraudulent advertising or predatory financial schemes, would be a violation of right speech and right action. A career that directly contributes to the destruction of our environment, poisoning our air and water, is a form of causing harm on an immense scale. Work that thrives on creating addiction, whether to gambling, unhealthy substances, or even certain kinds of technology, is a business built on exploiting the principle of tanha, the thirst that causes so much suffering. To reflect on these things is not an exercise in judgment against those in such professions, as circumstances can be complex. Rather, it is an invitation for a deep and honest personal inquiry. Is my work fundamentally aligned with the intention of harmlessness, of compassion, of promoting well-being? Or does it, in some direct way, contribute to the sum total of suffering in the world? For many of us, however, our work may not fall into these clearly defined harmful categories. We may be accountants, teachers, programmers, drivers, artists, or administrators. Here, the practice of right livelihood becomes more subtle and, in many ways, more profound. It shifts the focus from what we do to how we do it. It is possible to be a doctor who acts without compassion, and it is possible to be a street sweeper who performs their work with a heart full of grace and dignity. Right livelihood can be practiced in any profession by infusing it with the qualities of the path. This inner practice means bringing an unwavering integrity to our work. It means giving an honest day's labor for an honest day's pay. It means creating products and offering services that are of genuine quality and value. It is the refusal to cut corners, to deceive a customer, or to cheat a colleague. It is the application of right speech in the workplace, avoiding toxic gossip, speaking truthfully and kindly to co-workers, and using communication to foster teamwork rather than division. It is the application of right action, treating subordinates with respect and fairness, refusing to climb the ladder of success through ruthless or harmful tactics, and creating a safe and supportive atmosphere for those around you. There is a beautiful image that captures this spirit perfectly. Imagine two carpenters, both building a chair. The first carpenter works with resentment. He sees the wood as a lifeless object, the work as a tedious chore, and the future owner as an anonymous source of income. He hammers with aggression, measures carelessly, and is only concerned with finishing the job as quickly as possible. The chair he produces may be functional, but it is an object born of negative energy. It is imbued with the suffering of its creator. The second carpenter works with right livelihood. She approaches the wood with respect, feeling its grain, appreciating its journey from a living tree. She sees her tools not as weapons against the wood, but as extensions of her own hands and intention. She works with a quiet, focused mindfulness, making each cut precise, each joint secure. She thinks of the person who will one day sit in this chair, and she holds a silent wish in her heart that they may find rest and comfort in her creation. For this carpenter, the work is not a chore, it is a meditation. It is an act of service. It is an expression of her own peaceful and creative spirit. The chair she produces is more than just a piece of furniture. It is an artifact of care, an object infused with wholesome energy. This is a choice available to all of us, no matter our job. We can infuse our daily tasks with this same quality of mindful presence and benevolent intention. Answering an email can become a practice of clear and kind communication. Cleaning a room can become a meditation on creating order and beauty. Writing a line of code can be an act of building something useful and reliable for others. When we approach our work in this way, the distinction between making a living and living a meaningful life begins to dissolve. Meaning is not something we must find in a glamorous or heroic profession. It is something we can create, moment by moment, in whatever work is before us, by bringing the fullness of our humanity to it. Our work ceases to be just a means to an end, a paycheck, and becomes an integral part of our spiritual path. The first 5 steps of this noble path: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, and now, right livelihood together form the bedrock of an ethical life. In the language of the teachings, this is known as sila, or virtuous conduct. They are practices that purify our relationship with the outer world. By living in this way, we cease to create external disturbances that agitate our minds. We create a life characterized by simplicity, peace, and the trust of others. We no longer have to live with the stress of dishonesty, the guilt of causing harm, or the inner conflict of acting against our own values. This foundation of outer peace and ethical integrity is absolutely essential. It creates the stable and tranquil ground upon which we can begin the even deeper, more subtle work of training the mind itself. Having calmed the outer world, we can now turn our full attention inward to the practices of effort, mindfulness, and concentration that will lead to the final liberation of the heart. With our lives now grounded in a bedrock of ethical conduct, a foundation of sila, we create a space of outer peace. Our relationships become simpler, our conscience clear, and our hearts unburdened by the stress of deceit or the guilt of causing harm. This external tranquility is the ideal environment for the next phase of our journey, a deeper turn inward into the direct cultivation of the mind itself. This second great division of the path is called samadhi, or mental discipline, and the very engine that drives this inner work, the vital energy that animates the entire path, is the 6th factor, samavayama, or right effort. When we hear the word effort, our modern conditioning immediately conjures images of struggle, of striving, of gritting our teeth and pushing through pain. We think of the athlete's motto, no pain, no gain, or the relentless pressure of hustle culture. We imagine effort as a tense, forceful, and often exhausting battle against ourselves or our circumstances. But the concept of right effort is something entirely different. It is an energy that is wise, not forceful, joyful, not grim, sustainable, not depleting. It is the balanced, intelligent, and persistent application of our will, guided by kindness and patience. There is a beautiful story from the life of the Buddha that perfectly illustrates this delicate balance. A monk named Sona Kolavisa was practicing with extreme, almost violent determination. He was so zealous in his walking meditation that the soles of his feet cracked and bled, staining the monastery grounds. Yet, despite his heroic efforts, his mind was no closer to peace. He grew despondent and even considered giving up his life as a monk, feeling he was a failure. The Buddha, knowing what was in Sona's mind, went to him and asked a simple question. "Sona," he said, "I understand that before you became a monk, you were a skilled musician, a player of the lute." "That is true, Venerable Sir," Sona replied. "Tell me, Sona," the Buddha continued, "if the strings of your lute were tuned too tightly, would it produce a beautiful and harmonious sound?" "No, sir," Sona answered. "The strings would be sharp and jarring, and they would likely break." And if the strings were too loose, would it play well then? No, sir. It would produce only a dull and muted thud, making no real music at all. And what if the strings were tuned just right, not too tight, and not too loose? Then, sir, Sona said, his eyes lighting up, it would produce a sound that is beautiful, resonant, and enchanting. The Buddha smiled gently. So it is, Sona, with the spiritual path. If your effort is too tense, too strained, it leads to restlessness and agitation, and the string of your will may break. If your effort is too lax, too slack, it leads to laziness and lethargy, and you will make no progress. Your energy, Sona, must be tuned like the strings of your lute, balanced, consistent, and sustained, giving rise to the beautiful music of peace. This is the very essence of right effort. It is not a grim struggle, but a joyful art of tuning our own energy. This art is practiced through 4 specific channels, 4 great, wholesome efforts that guide our inner cultivation. We can think of them as the 4 primary tasks of the wise gardener of the mind. The first is the effort to prevent unwholesome states from arising. This is the proactive, preventative work of the gardener. It is like building a sturdy fence around our garden to keep out pests before they can do any damage. In practice, this means developing self-awareness. We begin to recognize the specific triggers that tend to give rise to states like anger, envy, or anxiety in our own minds. If we know that scrolling through a certain social media feed always leaves us feeling inadequate and envious, the effort to prevent is the wise choice to limit our exposure to it. If we know that being sleep-deprived makes us irritable and angry, the effort to prevent is the commitment to get proper rest. It is not about hiding from the world, but about skillfully managing our environment and our choices to create the best conditions for a peaceful mind. The second is the effort to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. The gardener knows that no matter how good the fence is, some weeds will inevitably sprout. When we notice that a weed, a thought of resentment, a wave of greed, a surge of anxiety has already taken root in the garden of our mind, what do? We do not attack it with violence, cursing it and ourselves for its presence. This would only churn up the soil and spread the seeds further. Instead, we apply the gentle but firm effort of abandonment. We acknowledge the thought without judgment. We see it for what it is, an impersonal mental event, a weed. Then, we can gently uproot it by turning our attention to something more wholesome, like the feeling of our breath, or by deliberately cultivating its opposite, such as a thought of loving kindness. To counteract a thought of anger, we simply let go of the storyline and withdraw our attention, and without the water of our focus, the weed will wither and die on its own. The third is the effort to develop wholesome states that have not yet arisen. This is the joyful work of planting new seeds, of introducing beautiful flowers into our garden where there were none before. It is the conscious and deliberate cultivation of qualities like kindness, compassion, generosity, gratitude, and concentration. We may not feel particularly grateful on a given morning, but we can make the gentle effort to bring to mind 3 things we are thankful for. We may not feel particularly loving towards a difficult person, but we can make the effort to sit for a few minutes and radiate thoughts of goodwill. This is not about faking emotions. It is about creating the causes and conditions that allow these wholesome states to arise naturally. It is the faith that by planting these seeds and tending to them, they will, in time, blossom. The fourth and final task is the effort to maintain wholesome states that have already arisen. When a beautiful flower does bloom in our garden, when we experience a moment of genuine peace, a feeling of deep connection, or a surge of spontaneous compassion, we often tend to ignore it and quickly move on to the next problem. This fourth effort encourages us to do the opposite. It is the effort to nurture and sustain these precious states. When a feeling of peace arises during meditation, we learn to savor it, to rest in it, to become intimate with its texture and quality. When an act of kindness brings a warmth to our heart, we pause and allow that feeling to permeate our being. By giving these wholesome states the sunlight of our appreciative attention, we encourage them to grow stronger, to last longer, and to reappear more frequently. These four efforts, practiced together, create a mind that is resilient, positive, and primed for deeper states of tranquility. But they must always be balanced by the wisdom of Sona's lute string and married to a boundless patience and kindness for oneself. Progress is never a straight line. There will be days when the weeds seem to overwhelm the garden, and days when the flowers bloom effortlessly. Right effort is not measured by the outcome of any single day, but by the gentle, unwavering commitment to keep showing up, to keep tending the garden, to keep retuning the strings of our energy with compassion. It is this sustained, joyful, and balanced energy that prepares the mind for the next great step on the path, the clear, unwavering light of right mindfulness. Having established a life of ethical integrity and having learned to tune our energy with the wisdom of the lute player, we arrive now at the very heart of the path, the seventh and most celebrated factor, samasati, or right mindfulness. If right effort is the gentle, steady current of the river, right mindfulness is the clarity of the water itself. The two work together perfectly. Effort provides the energy to remain present, while mindfulness is the faculty that knows, with a pristine and simple clarity, what we are being present with. In our time, the word mindfulness has become popular, but its profound depth is often missed. It is more than just paying attention or a simple relaxation technique. It is the miracle of waking up from the dream of thought. Most of our lives are spent in a state of virtual reality, our minds lost in the past replaying conversations, nursing old grievances, clinging to memories, lost in the future rehearsing plans, worrying about outcomes, fantasizing about what might be. We are almost never fully where we are. The past is a ghost, the future is a dream, and the only reality, the only place life ever truly happens, is this present moment. Right mindfulness is the gentle but radical act of remembering to come home to the present moment. The practice is one of pure awareness, an awareness that has a particular quality. It is non-judgmental. It observes our experience without labeling it as good or bad, right or wrong. It simply sees what is. Imagine you are a gatekeeper, sitting at the main gate of a great city. Your job is not to chase after the travelers who enter or leave, nor to interrogate them, nor to approve or disapprove of their clothing. Your job is simply to be aware of who comes and who goes. A farmer is entering, a merchant is leaving. So it is with mindfulness. A thought of sadness arises. The mindful mind does not say, "Oh no, sadness. I hate this feeling. I must get rid of it." It simply notes, with a calm and impartial interest, "Ah, sadness is here. This is what sadness feels like." A sound is heard. The mindful mind simply notes, hearing. An itch appears on the skin. The mindful mind simply notes, itching. It is a simple, bare, and incredibly powerful attention. To develop this capacity, the teachings guide us to rest our awareness on four fundamental areas of our experience. These are known as the four foundations of mindfulness. The first, and the most important anchor for our practice, is mindfulness of the body. Our body is always here, in the present moment. It never lives in the past or the future. By bringing our attention to it, we instantly ground ourselves in the now. The most accessible practice here is mindfulness of the breath. As you lie here, you can feel the air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and the gentle fall of your abdomen as you exhale. You are not trying to control the breath or change it in any way. You are simply feeling its raw, physical sensations. The coolness of the in-breath, the warmth of the out-breath. The breath becomes your most faithful friend, a constant, rhythmic anchor you can return to at any time to find your center. This practice can extend to the whole body feeling, the weight of your body on the bed, the points of contact, any feelings of warmth, coolness, tingling, or pressure. It is a profound act of inhabiting your own physical form. The second foundation is mindfulness of feelings, or more accurately, feeling tones. Every single experience we have, whether it comes from outside or inside, has an immediate, pre-verbal tone to it. It is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You hear a beautiful piece of music, and a pleasant feeling tone arises. You feel a sudden pain in your back, and an unpleasant feeling tone arises. You see a plain wall, and a neutral feeling tone arises. Our entire life of craving and aversion is built upon our unconscious reactions to these tones. We mindlessly chase the pleasant, push away the unpleasant, and ignore the neutral. Mindfulness of feeling tones is the practice of simply noticing them without being hijacked. When an unpleasant sensation like an itch arises, can you just observe the raw feeling of unpleasantness for a few moments before you react? When a pleasant feeling of warmth arises, can you just enjoy it without immediately clinging to it and worrying about when it will end? This practice unties the deep unconscious knots of tanha, our thirst, at its very root. The third foundation is mindfulness of the mind itself, or consciousness. Here, we turn our awareness back on the mind that is aware. We learn to observe its overall state, its climate. Is the mind right now open and receptive, or is it closed and resistant? Is it scattered like dust in the wind, or is it calm and settled? Is it bright and alert, or is it dull and sleepy? Again, there is no judgment. It is not bad for the mind to be sleepy if you are lying in bed at night. The practice is simply to know what is true in the moment. The mind is tired. The mind is agitated. By knowing the state of our mind, we are no longer its victim. We can see it clearly, and that seeing gives us the space to make wise choices. The fourth foundation is mindfulness of mind objects, which includes our thoughts and emotions. This is where we learn to watch the contents of our mind as an impartial observer. We sit on the bank of the river of our mind and watch the thoughts float by. Ah, a memory of yesterday. There goes a plan for tomorrow. Here is a thought of judgment. We see them arise, stay for a moment, and then vanish. We begin to understand that thoughts are just thoughts. They are not facts. They are not us. They are impersonal events in consciousness, like clouds drifting across the vast open sky. We are the sky, not the clouds. The sky is not harmed by a dark storm cloud, nor does it try to cling to a beautiful, fluffy white cloud. It allows them all to come and go in its spacious embrace. This practice liberates us from the tyranny of our own thinking. We no longer have to believe every anxious story our mind tells us. In our age of digital distraction, this practice of right mindfulness is nothing short of a revolutionary act. Our attention has become the world's most valuable commodity, and 1,000 forces are vying for it every second of the day. Notifications, advertisements, and endless feeds are all designed to pull us out of the present moment and into a state of reactive, scattered consciousness. Mindfulness is the radical act of reclaiming your own mind. It is the declaration of your sovereignty over your own attention. It is the most powerful antidote we have to the anxiety and fragmentation of modern life. Ultimately, mindfulness is not a difficult technique to be mastered, but a gentle, returning to our most natural state of being. It is the process of coming home, home to your body, home to your breath, home to this very moment, because this moment is all there is. It is the only place you can ever feel, or love, or learn, or heal. As we practice stabilizing our awareness here, in the pristine clarity of the now, we create the perfect conditions for the final, unifying step of the path, the deep, unshakable peace of right concentration. As the gentle, persistent energy of right effort supports the clear, unwavering gaze of right mindfulness, something remarkable begins to happen. The mind, which for so long has been fragmented and scattered like dust motes, dancing in 1,000 different sunbeams, starts to gather itself. The dispersed rays of our attention, once pulled in every direction by worries, memories, and desires, begin to coalesce into a single, steady, and luminous beam. This unification of mind, this state of profound collectedness, is the 8th and final step of the path. It is called Samma Samadhi, or right concentration. It is the natural and beautiful fruit of all the steps that have come before it. Imagine your mind as a glass of water taken from a swirling, muddy river. For most of our lives, this glass is constantly being shaken. The winds of desire, the tremors of aversion, the storms of anxiety and restlessness keep the water in a state of perpetual agitation. The mud is so thoroughly mixed with the water that it is impossible to see through the glass. The water is murky, chaotic, and opaque. The practice of ethical conduct, right speech, right action, and right livelihood is like making the conscious decision to stop deliberately shaking the glass. We create a life of outer peace that allows for inner stillness. The practice of right mindfulness, then, is the act of taking this glass and placing it gently, carefully, upon a perfectly steady surface. We simply hold it in our awareness, without judgment. Right concentration, samadhi, is the miracle that happens next, all by itself. As the glass is held steady, with gentle and patient awareness, the laws of nature take over. The heavier particles of mud and sediment, the coarse agitations of the mind, begin to settle. Slowly, gracefully, they drift down to the bottom of the glass. The water begins to clear. The longer the glass is held in stillness, the more sediment settles, until finally, the water becomes completely transparent, pure, and luminous. You can now see through it without any distortion. This clarity is wisdom. This settledness is peace. The mind in a state of samadhi is no longer a muddy, agitated mess. It is a vessel of pure, clear water, capable of reflecting reality exactly as it is. It is important to distinguish this state from the ordinary concentration we use in our daily lives. When we focus on a difficult task at work, or become engrossed in a book or a film, we are concentrating. But this concentration is often tense, exclusive, and can be draining. It is an act of force, of willfully shutting out distractions. Right concentration is different. It is not born of tension, but of release. It is not an act of forcing, but an act of allowing. As mindfulness holds its gentle focus on a single object, such as the breath, and as effort provides the steady energy to remain there, the mind begins to experience a deep pleasure and interest in its task. It is so content to rest with the breath that other distractions simply fall away on their own. They are not pushed out. They are simply no longer interesting. the mind comes to rest, joyfully and willingly. As this concentration deepens, we may begin to experience states of profound absorption and tranquility, known in the ancient teachings as the jhanas. These are not mystical trances that take us out of reality, but rather progressively deeper levels of mental stillness and well-being that are a natural unfolding of a purified mind. There is no need to strive for them. They arise when the conditions are right. The first stage feels like setting down a heavy burden you didn't even realize you were carrying. The primary obstacles to peace, the constant craving for pleasure, the background noise of ill will, the heavy dullness of lethargy, the buzzing of restlessness and worry, and the nagging voice of doubt all temporarily subside. In their absence, a powerful sense of bliss and joy arises. It is a clean, wholesome happiness, born not of getting something you want, but of being free from the very state of wanting. It is the joy of seclusion, not from the world, but from the mind's own inner tormentors. As the mind continues to settle in this peaceful state, the initial, more energetic bliss begins to calm down. It matures into a deep and abiding sense of contentment, a quiet, unshakable happiness. The mind becomes even more unified, like the still, deep waters of a mountain lake, fed by a cool spring from within. There is a profound sense of inner quiet. The discursive, chattering thoughts that narrate our lives fade into the background, and we rest in a state of pure, knowing presence. In the deepest levels of this tranquility, even this profound happiness gives way to something even more subtle and sublime. It gives way to a vast, unshakable equanimity. It is a peace that is beyond the duality of pleasure and pain, happiness and sadness. It is a state of perfect balance, like the absolute stillness at the center of a spinning wheel. The mind is immensely vast, open and free, and it is from this pinnacle of calm and clarity that the deepest insights can arise. This brings us to the ultimate purpose of right concentration. The profound peace and bliss of these states are wonderful gifts, but they are not the final goal. They are a means to an end. The end is liberation, which is born of wisdom. A mind that has been sharpened and clarified to this degree by samadhi becomes an incredibly powerful instrument of investigation. It becomes like a high-powered microscope or a beam of laser light, capable of seeing into the deepest nature of existence with unprecedented clarity. With this concentrated mind, we can turn our attention to our own experience and see, not just as an idea, but as a direct, irrefutable reality, the truth of impermanence. We see thoughts, feelings, and sensations arising and passing away, moment by moment, like bubbles on the surface of water. With this clarity, we see the subtle reality of dukkha, understanding precisely how clinging to these fleeting experiences is the root of our suffering. And most profoundly, with this powerful lens, we can look for the solid, separate self we have always believed in, only to find that it is nowhere to be found. We see that we are not a fixed thing, but a flowing, interconnected process. This is the culmination of the Noble Eightfold Path. The 8 steps, working in perfect harmony, have led us here. Right view provided the map. The practices of ethical conduct created the stable ground. Right effort provided the gentle energy. Right mindfulness held the unwavering focus. And right concentration has polished the lens of the mind to a state of perfect clarity. With this mind, we are no longer just looking at the map. We are seeing the landscape for ourselves, directly. We are ready to realize the liberating truths that will set the heart free, once and for all. The mind, now settled and clear, resting in the deep, unified calm of samadhi, becomes a perfect instrument. It is like an observatory whose lens has been polished to perfection, capable of seeing into the vast expanse of reality without distortion. When we turn this powerful, silent awareness upon our own experience, the first great universal truth that comes into sharp, undeniable focus is the law of anicca, or impermanence. This is not a complex philosophy to be debated, nor a pessimistic belief to be adopted. It is the most direct, observable, and fundamental characteristic of everything that exists. It is the simple and profound truth that everything changes, nothing lasts. Look anywhere in the universe, and you will see this law in action. The great galaxies themselves are in constant motion. Stars are born in fiery nebulae, shine for billions of years, and then die, collapsing into darkness. On our own planet, mountains are pushed up over eons, only to be slowly, patiently worn down by wind and rain. The seasons turn in their endless, graceful cycle, from the green shoots of spring to the vibrant life of summer, the letting go of autumn, and the deep slumber of winter. Nothing is static. Everything is a process, a flow, a dance of arising and passing away. And this universal law is not something that only happens out there, in the distant cosmos, or the slow grinding of geology. It is happening right here, right now, in the intimate reality of your own being. Consider the body you are resting in. It is not a solid, fixed entity. It is a flowing river of processes. With every breath, you take in the world and release it again. Your heart is in constant, rhythmic motion. Millions of your cells are dying and being replaced in this very moment. The body you have now is not the same body you had 7 years ago, nor is it the same body you will have 7 years from now. It is a temporary vessel, a flowing pattern of energy, constantly changing. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said that you can never step into the same river twice. This is a perfect expression of anicca. You step into the water, and the water that touches your feet flows on, downstream, forever. A moment later, new water is flowing past. It is the same river in name, but its substance is entirely new. The Buddha took this insight even further. Not only can you not step into the same river twice, but you are not the same person who steps into it. The person who steps in is also a flowing process. Your thoughts, your feelings, your physical sensation soul are in a state of constant flux. Life is not a series of still photographs. It is a moving picture. There are no nouns in reality, only verbs. There is no thing, only happening. You can observe this truth directly in the landscape of your own mind. Notice your feelings. No emotion is permanent. A wave of joy can arise, filling your heart with warmth, but eventually it subsides. A pang of sadness can visit, casting a shadow over your mind, but it too will pass. A flash of anger can flare up, hot and intense, but it cannot sustain itself forever. It burns out. Knowing this in the depth of your being is a source of incredible wisdom and relief. In times of great pain or sorrow, the wisdom of anicca whispers, "This too shall pass." It gives us the strength to endure, knowing that no storm lasts forever. And in times of great pleasure and happiness, it whispers a gentle reminder of humility, encouraging us to enjoy the sweetness of the moment without desperately clinging to it, knowing that it, too, is a passing cloud. Look even more closely at your thoughts. The mind is a ceaseless waterfall of thinking. A thought appears, seemingly from nowhere. It lingers for a second or two, and then it vanishes, replaced by another. Try to hold onto a single thought. You cannot do it. It is like trying to catch the wind in your fist. This direct seeing of the impermanent nature of thought is profoundly liberating. We realize we do not have to believe every thought that passes through our awareness. We do not have to identify with every story our mind tells us. We can simply watch the parade of thoughts pass by, without being swept away by it. At first, the teaching of impermanence might sound sad or even nihilistic. If nothing lasts, what is the point? But this is a misunderstanding born of our deep-seated craving for permanence. The suffering associated with change does not come from the change itself. Change is neutral. It is just the way things are. The suffering comes from our resistance to change. It comes from our attempt to do the impossible, to make permanent that which is, by its very nature, impermanent. We want our youth to last forever. We want a perfect, happy moment to be frozen in time. We want our relationships to remain exactly as they are, in their most ideal phase. We try to build a solid, permanent fortress of security and happiness in the middle of a constantly flowing river. And this struggle, this fight against the fundamental nature of reality, is utterly exhausting, and it is doomed to fail. The acceptance of anicca is the end of this futile war. It is a profound act of letting go. It is the wisdom that allows us to relax and flow with the river of life, rather than constantly trying to swim against its current. And far from making life meaningless, the truth of impermanence makes every moment infinitely precious. If this present moment, exactly as it is, will never come again, it becomes a priceless treasure. We stop taking our lives for granted. We begin to pay attention. The taste of a sip of water, the sight of the moonlight through a window, the sound of a distant dog barking, the feeling of a gentle breeze, these simple, fleeting moments become infused with a poignant beauty, precisely because they are fleeting. We learn to love the world, not in spite of its transience, but because of it. The practice, then, is to simply notice change. Notice it everywhere. Notice the subtle shifts in the light as the day progresses. Notice the changing sounds around you. Notice the constant flow of sensations in your body. Notice the ever-shifting weather patterns of your own mind. To see anicca is not to fall into despair, but to awaken to the vibrant, dynamic, and ever-new reality of the present moment. It is to understand that you cannot hold on to the river. You cannot possess it. You can only open your hands, plunge them into the cool, clear water, feel its living current flow through your fingers, and allow it to move on. As we become intimate with this universal law of change, we are naturally led to ask a deeper question. If everything is changing, including my body, my feelings, and my thoughts, then what is this I that I believe to be so solid and permanent? This question opens the door to the next great insight, the truth of not self. As we rest in the clear, steady light of awareness, we come face to face with the universal truth of anicca, the law of impermanence. We see that our bodies, our feelings, and our thoughts are like a flowing river in a constant state of flux. This profound insight inevitably leads to an even deeper, more radical question. If everything I identify with my body, my sensations, my emotions, my thoughts is constantly changing, then where is the unchanging I at the center of it all? Where is the permanent, solid self that is having these experiences? The honest and courageous investigation of this question leads us to the most subtle, the most challenging, and ultimately, the most liberating teaching of the Buddha. This is the truth of anatta, or not self. Let us pause here and approach this truth with great gentleness, because for many of us, the idea of no self can sound terrifying. It can feel like a declaration of annihilation, a cold, nihilistic void. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. The teaching of anatta does not say that you do not exist. You are clearly here, breathing, hearing these words, feeling the sensations in your body. Anatta is not a denial of your existence. It is a profound redescription of how you exist. It suggests that you do not exist as a separate, solid, independent entity, a noun. Instead, you exist as a dynamic, interconnected, and ever-changing process, a verb. The teaching of not-self is not about destroying you. It is about helping you see through an illusion that has caused a lifetime of unnecessary suffering. There is a classic story that brilliantly illuminates this principle. It is the account of a dialogue between a great Buddhist sage named Nagasena and a powerful Greek king, Milinda. The king, a sharp and inquisitive man, approached Nagasena and asked his name. The sage replied that he was known as Nagasena, but that this was merely a designation, a convenient label, and that no permanent, individual Nagasena could be found as an ultimate reality. The king was baffled and challenged him. If there is no person, then who is it that wears these robes? Who eats, sleeps, and walks? Who is it that I am speaking to? Nagasena responded with a calm question of his own. Pointing to the king's magnificent chariot standing nearby, he asked, "Your Majesty, how did you arrive here today?" "In my chariot," the king replied. "Your Majesty," Nagasena continued, "please tell me, what is this chariot? Is the pole the chariot?" "No, venerable sir," said the king. "Are the wheels the chariot? Is the axle the chariot? The frame, the ropes?" To each question, the king had to answer no. Then, Nagasena asked, "Is the chariot all of these parts put together?" "No, sir." "Is the chariot, then, something separate from all of its parts?" "No, venerable sir." Nagasena then declared, "Your Majesty, you have told me you arrived in a chariot, yet, when we investigate, we cannot find a chariot. Chariot is simply a convenient name, a label we give to a collection of parts, assembled in a particular way. As soon as we disassemble the parts, the chariot disappears." He then looked at the king with gentle eyes. So it is with Nagasena. It is the label we give to the collection of the body, feelings, thoughts, and consciousness. When these are seen clearly, no separate, permanent self can be found. This is the investigation we are invited to undertake for ourselves. We can look at our own experience through the same lens Nagasena used. The Buddha analyzed our entire being into 5 flowing processes, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. The first is form, which is our physical body. We look at this body with all its sensations. We see that it is impermanent, constantly changing, subject to aging and sickness, and not entirely under our command. Is this body, this collection of flesh, bone, and blood, the real, lasting me? We must conclude that it is not. It is something we have, but not what we are. The second is feeling, the constant stream of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feeling tones that arise with every experience. These feelings are as fleeting as the weather. They come and they go. Can we really say that these fickle, unreliable visitors are the essence of who we are? If we did, our self would be changing from moment to moment, happy one second, sad the next. This, too, cannot be the permanent I. The third is perception, the mental faculty that identifies and labels our experience. It recognizes shapes, sounds, and smells. It says blue, car, tree, threat, opportunity. These perceptions are conditioned by our past, our culture, and our language. Are these learned mental labels the true, independent self? This also seems unlikely. The fourth aggregate is mental formations. This is a broad category that includes all our other mental habits and activities, our thoughts, our beliefs, our opinions, our moods, our intentions, our memories, our dreams. This is the category we most often identify with. We think our personality, our unique collection of thoughts and habits, is our self. But when we look closely with a quiet mind, we see that these two are impermanent processes. Our opinions change, our moods shift, our habits can be retrained. These are conditioned patterns, not a solid, unchanging essence. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness, the raw awareness that knows the other four. It is the light of knowing that cognizes seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. But even this awareness, the Buddha pointed out, is not a solid, independent thing. Seeing consciousness arises only when there is an I and a form. Hearing consciousness arises only when there is an ear and a sound. It is dependent on conditions, and it is flickering on and off with incredible speed, moment by moment. It is not a monolithic, unchanging soul. So, like the king looking for his chariot, we look for ourself. We look in the body, and it is not there. We look in our feelings, our perceptions, our thoughts, our consciousness, and it is not there either. We find that self is the convenient name we give to the dynamic, flowing, and interdependent dance of these five processes. There is no little person, no homunculus, sitting inside our heads pulling the levers. The entire process runs by itself, according to the laws of cause and effect. Why is seeing this so incredibly liberating? Because the idea of a separate, solid self is the root of most of our suffering. It is this imagined self that feels it needs to be defended from insult. It is this self that feels pride and arrogance when praised, and shame and despair when criticized. It is this self that is terrified of old age, sickness, and death. It is this self that feels isolated, lonely, and separate from the rest of the world. When this illusion is seen through, the target for all this suffering becomes transparent. The heavy burden of protecting, promoting, and perpetuating this fictional CEO of our lives is suddenly set down. The anxiety dissolves. Furthermore, when the hard boundary between me and you is seen as an illusion, a profound empathy naturally arises. We see that other people are also a dynamic process of these five aggregates, driven by the same desires and fears. Their suffering is no longer separate from our own. A deep and genuine compassion, a sense of interconnectedness with all of life, begins to blossom in the space once occupied by the small, anxious self. We shift from identifying as a separate noun to experiencing ourselves as an interconnected verb. We are not a thing, but a process of becoming. We are not a wave, separate from the ocean. We are the ocean, temporarily rising up in the form of a wave. And this deep sense of connection is the source of the truest and most lasting joy. When the solid walls of the separate self are seen through, when the illusion of me as a fixed and isolated entity begins to dissolve, an incredible space opens up within us. The small, guarded fortress of the ego, which required so much energy to defend, reveals itself to be a house with no walls. And into this newfound openness, a natural quality of the heart, long obscured, begins to radiate forth, like the sun emerging from behind the clouds. This radiant warmth, this boundless and unconditional friendliness towards all of life, is known as metta, or loving kindness. It is the heart's joyful response to the realization of our shared existence. Metta is a love that is radically different from the conditional, grasping love we so often experience. It is not the romantic love that says, "I will love you if you make me happy." It is not the transactional love that says, "I will love you if you meet my needs." Metta is an unconditional and selfless wish for the genuine happiness and well-being of any and all living beings. It does not ask for anything in return. It is a steady, intentional radiation of goodwill, like the sun that shines its warmth down on saints and sinners, on flowers and weeds, without discrimination. This practice is the direct and powerful antidote to the inner poisons of anger, hatred, resentment, and ill will. You cannot hold a feeling of genuine, warm-hearted metta in your heart at the same moment as a feeling of anger. One displaces the other. Light and darkness cannot occupy the same space. Therefore, the cultivation of metta is not a passive or sentimental exercise. It is an active practice of mental and emotional purification. It is a way of intentionally training the heart to dwell in a state of warmth, openness, and friendliness, rather than in states of judgment, fear, and hostility. The practice of cultivating metta traditionally begins in the one place we so often neglect, with ourselves. We are taught in so many ways to be critical of ourselves, to focus on our flaws, to believe we are not good enough until we achieve some future goal. We live in a state of inner conflict, at war with ourselves. But you cannot pour water for another from an empty cup. You cannot genuinely wish for the happiness of others if you cannot offer that same grace to yourself. So, the journey of metta begins at home, in your own heart. As you rest here, you can gently begin this practice. Bring your awareness to your heart center and silently, softly, offer yourself these ancient phrases of kindness. Let the words be more than just words. Try to feel the sincere intention behind them. You can say to yourself, "May I be safe. May I be free from inner and outer harm. May I be healthy. May my body be strong and my mind at ease. May I be happy. May I know the joy of a peaceful heart. May I live with ease. May I meet the challenges of life with grace and courage." Do not worry if you don't feel a sudden rush of emotion. Simply the act of offering these wishes, of planting these seeds of kindness in the soil of your own heart, is a powerful act of healing. You are gently ending the inner war and calling a truce with yourself. Once you have established a foundation of kindness for yourself, you can begin to extend it outward, like the ripples from a stone dropped in a still pond. First, bring to mind a dear friend, a mentor, or a benefactor, someone for whom you feel natural gratitude and warmth. Picture them in your mind's eye and offer them the same wishes. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. May you live with ease. Feel the natural flow of warmth from your heart to theirs. Rest in that feeling of simple, uncomplicated goodwill. Next, the practice stretches our capacity for kindness. Bring to mind a neutral person, someone you neither like nor dislike. Perhaps it is the person who checks out your groceries, or someone you pass on the street each day. You know nothing of their struggles, their hopes, their fears. See them in your mind and offer them the very same wishes. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. In this step, we are training the heart to be kind, even when there is no personal benefit. We are breaking down the habit of indifference and recognizing the shared humanity in a stranger. Now comes the most transformative and sometimes the most challenging step. Gently bring to mind a person with whom you have difficulty. It is wise to begin with someone who is only mildly irritating, not the source of your deepest trauma. It could be a colleague who annoys you, or a family member with whom you often disagree. The practice here is not to condone their harmful actions or to force yourself to like them. It is a profound act of healing for your own heart. It is the recognition that their unskillful actions are almost certainly rooted in their own suffering, their own anger, and their own confusion. Holding resentment towards them is the poison you drink, hoping they will be harmed. The practice of metta is the act of putting down the poison for your own sake. And so, with whatever sincerity you can muster, you offer them the same wish. May you be free from the anger and suffering that causes you to act in this way. May you find peace. May you be happy. This act can begin to dissolve knots of resentment that you have carried for years. Finally, you let your heart become boundless. You imagine this feeling of loving kindness radiating out from you in all directions, to the front, to the back, to the right, and to the left, above and below. You extend it to all people in your building, your city, your country. You extend it to all people on earth, without exception. You extend it further to all living beings, the animals in the wild, the birds in the air, the creatures in the sea. You hold the entire world in a vast, compassionate embrace with the simple, powerful wish. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings live with ease. Do not underestimate the power of this practice. Metta is not a weak or sentimental feeling. The teachings tell a story of how the Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, once tried to assassinate him by releasing a ferocious, intoxicated elephant named Nalagiri to charge at him in a narrow street. People screamed and fled in terror, but the Buddha simply stood his ground, and with a heart completely free of fear or anger, he radiated a powerful wave of pure metta towards the enraged animal. The elephant, which was prepared to kill, suddenly slowed its charge. Overwhelmed by this unprecedented feeling of pure, unconditional loving-kindness, it stopped, lowered its head, and knelt peacefully at the Buddha's feet. This story illustrates that metta is a force, a tangible energy that has the power to tame the wildness in others, and most importantly, the wildness within our own hearts. It is a shield of warmth that protects us, and a light that we can shine into the darkest corners of the world. And this sincere wish for all beings to be happy is the perfect partner to our next exploration, the deep wish for all beings to be free from suffering. If the practice of metta, or loving kindness, is like training the heart to be a radiant sun, warming all of life with the sincere wish for happiness, then its inseparable twin is the quality of karuna, or compassion. They are two wings of the same great bird of love. Karuna is the heart's response when the warm light of metta falls upon the inevitable reality of suffering in the world. It is the heart's quiver, its gentle trembling in the face of pain, accompanied by the deep and unwavering aspiration to alleviate that pain. While metta wishes for all beings to find the causes of their happiness, karuna wishes for all beings to be free from the causes of their suffering. It is the direct and powerful antidote to the poisons of cruelty, indifference, and despair. In our everyday language, we often confuse compassion with pity, but they are profoundly different. Pity looks down from above. It says, "Oh, you poor thing," and in doing so, it creates a distance, a separation between the observer and the one who suffers. Pity reinforces the ego of the person feeling it, making them feel fortunate and superior by comparison. It is a cold and distant emotion. Empathy, another related quality, is the ability to feel with another. This is a crucial step closer. It is the capacity to resonate with another's joy or sorrow. However, raw, unfiltered empathy can be overwhelming. If we simply absorb the suffering of others without wisdom, we risk drowning in it ourselves, leading to burnout and helplessness. Karuna, or true compassion, is the sublime synthesis of feeling and wisdom. It is the ability to feel with another, to connect with their suffering on a deep level, but without losing our own center. It is an empathy that is grounded in strength, courage, and a clear-eyed desire to help. The compassionate heart does not break in the face of suffering. It opens. It is not overwhelmed by the pain of the world. It is moved to action by it. It is the tender heart of a mother who feels the pain of her crying child. But her tenderness does not immobilize her. Instead, it fuels her swift, wise, and effective action to soothe and care for the child. In the great traditions of the East, this boundless potential for compassion is embodied in the archetypal figure of Avalokiteshvara, known as Quan the Am in Vietnam, or Kannon in Japan. This is the Bodhisattva, the enlightened being, who hears the cries of the world. They are often depicted with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, 1,000 eyes to see suffering in all its forms, even in its most hidden corners, and 1,000 arms to extend help in countless skillful ways. This image is not of a deity to be worshipped, but a mirror reflecting the limitless potential for compassion that lies dormant within our own hearts. It is a reminder that we too can cultivate the ability to respond to suffering, not with fear or aversion, but with a courageous and open-hearted readiness to help. However, for compassion to be a truly healing force, it must be guided by wisdom. Compassion without wisdom can inadvertently cause more harm. This is sometimes called idiot compassion. It is the compassion of a parent who, not wanting their child to feel any discomfort, gives them everything they demand, ultimately crippling their ability to develop resilience and self-reliance. It is the compassion of a friend who, seeing you in the pain of addiction, helps you continue your harmful habit because they cannot bear to see you suffer the discomfort of withdrawal. It is the compassion that leads us to burn ourselves out completely in the service of others, leaving us depleted and unable to help anyone at all. Wise compassion, or karuna, understands that we cannot take on another person's karma for them. We cannot walk their path or learn their lessons. It respects the journey of others, even when it is painful. Wise compassion helps where it can, offers support, and provides resources, but it does not foster dependency. It is grounded in a deep sense of equanimity, the understanding that we are not in control of the universe. We can offer our help, but we must let go of our attachment to the outcome. This wisdom is what makes compassion sustainable. It is what allows us to keep our hearts open to a world of suffering without being crushed by it. It is the quality that allows doctors, nurses, and social workers to face immense human pain day after day and still respond with kindness and effective care. The cultivation of compassion, like that of loving kindness, begins with ourselves. We cannot be a source of healing for others if we are constantly treating ourselves with cruelty and judgment. When you make a mistake, when you are in physical or emotional pain, can you offer yourself a dose of karuna? Can you place a hand on your own heart and say, "This is a moment of suffering. It is difficult. May I be gentle with myself in this pain. May I find the strength to heal." This act of self-compassion is not self-pity or indulgence. It is the necessary foundation for all authentic compassion for others. From there, we can extend it outward. When we see suffering on the news or in our own community, our habitual tendency is often to turn away. It feels like too much to bear. But the practice of karuna invites us to do something different. We can pause for just a moment. We can breathe in, acknowledging the reality of the pain. And as we breathe out, we can send a simple, heartfelt wish. May you be free from this suffering. May you find peace. This small act, practiced consistently, changes us. It rewires our response from aversion and fear to openness and care. The ultimate test of compassion is to extend it to those who cause harm. This is not easy, but it is profoundly transformative. The wisdom of this path helps us to see that people who inflict pain on others are themselves living in a state of profound inner suffering. They are trapped in the tormenting fires of their own anger, greed, and ignorance. To have compassion for them does not mean we condone their actions or allow them to continue causing harm. Justice and protection are also forms of compassion, but it means that on a deeper level, we can hold the wish for them to be free from the very inner conditions that compel them to create suffering for themselves and others. This is the compassion that prevents our own hearts from becoming hard and hateful, even in the face of great wrongdoing. Compassion, then, is the active and courageous state of the awakened heart. It is not a sad or heavy quality. It is a source of boundless energy and fearless engagement with life. It breaks down the illusion of separation and connects us in a web of mutual care. It is the force that moves us to listen deeply, to give generously, and to act skillfully to reduce the suffering in the world, one small, kind act at a time. This profound wish for others to be free from pain, coupled with our wish for them to be happy, creates a heart that is truly balanced. And such a heart is capable of experiencing the highest and purest forms of joy. Having opened our hearts with loving kindness and deepened them with compassion, we arrive at the third of the four divine abodes of the heart, the four boundless states of mind. This quality is perhaps the most radical and countercultural practice for our modern age, and yet it is a source of the most pure and readily available joy. It is the practice of mudita, which is often translated as sympathetic or appreciative joy. If metta is the wish for others to be happy, and karuna is the wish for them to be free from suffering, mudita is the genuine, wholehearted celebration we feel when we witness the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. It is the direct and powerful antidote to the corrosive poisons of jealousy and envy. We live in a world that is often driven by a deep-seated scarcity mindset. We are conditioned to compete, to compare, and to measure our own worth against the accomplishments of others. Our economic systems, our educational structures, and even the way we engage with social media are often built upon this premise of limited resources. There is only so much success, so much recognition, so much happiness to go around, and if someone else gets a large share, it feels as though there is less available for us. When we hear of a friend's promotion, a colleague's success, or see a stranger's beautiful vacation photos, the first, subtle, unconscious reaction for many of us is a painful clenching of the heart. A voice whispers, "Why them and not me?" This is the voice of envy. It is a deeply isolating and painful emotion. It creates a barrier between ourselves and others, and it poisons our own well-being by making our happiness contingent on the failure or lesser fortune of others. The practice of mudita is a revolutionary act of rebellion against this scarcity mindset. It is a declaration of abundance. It is the profound recognition that happiness is not a finite commodity. It is not a zero-sum game. The success of another does not diminish your own potential. The light of another does not cast a shadow on you. Mudita is the conscious cultivation of the opposite response. When we hear of another's good fortune, we train the heart to open, to delight, to feel a genuine sense of gladness for them. We learn to say, with sincerity, "How wonderful for you. Your joy brings me joy." This practice transforms the entire world from a landscape of competition into a vast field of potential happiness. There is a simple and beautiful analogy that captures the spirit of mudita perfectly. Imagine a single, solitary candle burning in a dark room. Its light is beautiful, but limited. Now, imagine that this single candle is used to light another candle. The first candle's flame does not diminish in the slightest. In fact, its own light remains as bright as ever, but now the total amount of light in the room has doubled. This second candle can then light a third, and a fourth, and 1,000 more. With each new candle that is lit, the original flame loses nothing, and the room becomes infinitely brighter and warmer. Happiness is like the flame of that candle. When we share in the happiness of another, our own happiness is not diminished. Instead, we have simply allowed more light into our own hearts. By rejoicing in the good fortune of others, we multiply our own opportunities for joy 1,000-fold. If you can only be happy when good things happen to you, your chances for happiness are quite limited. They are confined to the small and often unpredictable territory of your own life. But if you can learn to feel joy when good things happen to anyone, your friend, your neighbor, your colleague, even a stranger on the street, then your opportunities for happiness become boundless. You can find sources of delight and celebration everywhere you look. Like the other heart practices, mudita can be cultivated with a gentle and patient training. It begins, as always, close to home. Bring to mind someone you love dearly, a very close friend or family member. Now, think of a recent success or a moment of great happiness they experienced. Perhaps they got a job they wanted, fell in love, or achieved a personal goal. Allow yourself to fully recollect that moment. See the joy on their face. And instead of letting even the slightest shadow of comparison enter your mind, consciously practice mudita. Silently say to them in your heart, "I am so truly happy for you. I celebrate your success and your joy. May your happiness continue and grow." Feel the expansive, warm, and selfless quality of this genuine appreciation. Rest in that shared joy. Once you have practiced with someone close to you, you can begin to stretch the muscle of mudita. Bring to mind an acquaintance, someone you know but are not particularly close to. Perhaps you heard they received some good news or that something wonderful happened for their family. Practice generating that same sincere gladness for them. How wonderful for them. I am happy that they are happy. Notice how this practice dissolves the feeling of separation and fosters a sense of benevolent connection. The most advanced and healing practice of mudita is to try to apply it to someone whose success has triggered envy in you. This could be a rival or someone you secretly compare yourself to. This requires great honesty and courage. First, acknowledge the feeling of envy without judgment. See it for what it is, a painful contraction of the ego, a symptom of the scarcity mindset. Notice the pain it causes you. Then, gently, see if you can introduce a spark of mudita. Can you acknowledge the effort they put in? Can you recognize that their happiness does not prevent your own future happiness? Can you, even for a moment, let go of the comparison and simply wish them well? This practice is a powerful solvent for the ego. It frees you from the exhausting and painful prison of jealousy. To cultivate mudita is to cultivate a light and buoyant heart. It is to learn to dance at the celebrations of others, to feel a genuine thrill at their victories, and to see the world as a place overflowing with opportunities for shared joy. When our hearts are filled with loving kindness for all, when they are moved by compassion for all who suffer, and when they can celebrate the happiness of all who are fortunate, they become incredibly resilient, open, and vast. But to sustain this boundless openness in a world of constant change, a world of praise and blame, gain and loss, we need one final quality. We need an anchor of profound stability. This quality is equanimity, and it is the grounding force that balances and perfects all the others. We have cultivated a heart that radiates boundless loving kindness, a heart that trembles with tender compassion, a heart that celebrates with selfless joy. These three divine states, metta, karuna, and mudita, the beautiful, outgoing expressions of a liberated spirit. But in a world that is constantly changing, a world of unpredictable highs and lows, these expansive emotions need an anchor. They need a grounding force that provides them with unshakable stability and boundless wisdom. This fourth and final of the divine abodes is the great balancer and protector. It is the quality of upekkha, or equanimity. If the other three qualities are the sun, the rain, and the flowers, equanimity is the deep, silent earth from which they all grow and which holds them in a wise and patient embrace. Equanimity is perhaps the most subtle and misunderstood of these four states. It is often mistaken for its near enemy, indifference. Indifference is a state of coldness, of withdrawal, of shutting down the heart. It is a defense mechanism born of fear, a refusal to engage with the pain or joy of the world. Indifference says, "I don't care." Equanimity, on the other hand, is a state of profound openness, warmth, and engagement. Its heart is utterly open to all of life. It says, "I care deeply, but my peace does not depend on the outcome." It is the capacity to be fully present with life's joys and sorrows, without being swept away by them. It is the calm in the eye of the hurricane, the quiet stillness of the deep ocean that remains undisturbed by the churning waves on the surface. This profound balance is cultivated by learning to meet the inevitable fluctuations of life with a steady mind. In the Buddhist teachings, these fluctuations are known as the 8 worldly winds. They are the pairs of opposites that constantly blow upon us, threatening to throw us off balance. The first pair is pleasure and pain. The second is gain and loss. The third is praise and blame. And the fourth is fame and disrepute. The ordinary, untrained mind is like a leaf caught in these winds. When the wind of praise blows, we soar with elation and pride. When the wind of blame blows, we are dashed to the ground in despair. We become ecstatic with a new gain, and we are crushed by a significant loss. Our inner well-being is completely dependent on these external, uncontrollable conditions. We live on an emotional roller coaster, constantly seeking the highs and dreading the lows. The mind of equanimity, however, is like a great mountain. The winds of praise may howl around it, but the mountain is not moved. The storms of blame may rage, but the mountain remains stable and still. It experiences the warmth of the sun, pleasure and gain, and the cold of the snow, pain and loss. But its fundamental, grounded nature does not change. It does not mean the mountain doesn't feel the weather. It feels it all, but it is not defined by it. Equanimity is the practice of cultivating this mountainous stability within our own hearts. It is the freedom that comes from unhooking our well-being from the unpredictable winds of worldly opinion and circumstance. There is a story that perfectly illustrates this wise and powerful non-reactivity. One day, a man came to the Buddha and began to insult him with a torrent of angry and abusive language. The Buddha listened patiently and silently until the man had exhausted himself. When he was finished, the Buddha asked him a simple question. "My friend," he said, "if you prepare a gift for someone and you offer it to them, but that person does not accept your gift, to whom does the gift then belong?" The man, surprised, thought for a moment and replied, "Well, it would still belong to me." The Buddha nodded gently. "Exactly so," he said. "Today, you have offered me the gift of your anger and your insults. I have chosen not to accept it." And he calmly walked away, leaving the man to reflect on the nature of the gift he was still holding. This is the practice of equanimity. It is the understanding that the praise and blame of others are their gifts to offer. We have the absolute freedom to choose whether or not to accept them, to take them in and make them a part of our own inner world. When we are praised, we can be grateful without becoming inflated with pride. When we are blamed or criticized, we can listen for any particle of truth without being shattered by the negativity. We remain the calm center, the one who is aware, not the reactive victim of another's opinion. This profound stability is born of a deep, experiential understanding of impermanence, of anicca. When you truly know, in your bones, that all things arise and pass away, you cease to cling so desperately to the pleasant and resist so fiercely the unpleasant. You see gain and loss as two sides of the same coin, two natural phases of a cycle. This allows you to hold your experiences lightly. The equanimous mind does not grieve excessively over what is lost, because it knows that all things are by nature losable, and it does not become intoxicated by what is gained, because it knows that this too shall change. Furthermore, equanimity is the essential partner that protects and sustains compassion. It is the quality that prevents us from suffering from burnout. To keep one's heart open to a world filled with so much suffering can be overwhelming. If our own inner peace is dependent on fixing all the world's problems, we will quickly fall into despair. Wise compassion, grounded in equanimity, understands that we can only do our best. We offer our help, we plant our seeds of kindness, and then we let go of the results. This allows us to remain engaged, caring, and active in the world for the long haul, without being emotionally destroyed by the inevitable sorrows and setbacks we will encounter. Equanimity, then, is the crowning glory of the four divine abodes. It is the vast, spacious container that holds loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. It ensures that our love is not possessive, that our compassion is not overwhelming, and that our joy is not frivolous. It is the great, quiet peace that abides behind all the changing phenomena of life. It is the discovery of a sanctuary within our own hearts that is always safe, always still, and always free, no matter what winds may be blowing in the outer world. With a heart made stable and vast by this profound balance, we are now fully prepared to turn and face even the most difficult and hidden aspects of our own mind-sour fears, our traumas, our shadows, not with aversion, but with the clear light of wisdom and the gentle touch of a compassionate and unshakable heart. With a heart established in the four divine abodes, grounded and stabilized by the vast peace of equanimity, we are no longer a leaf blown about by the winds of the world. We have found our mountain, but this strength is not cultivated for its own sake, nor is it a means to escape from life's difficulties. This profound inner stability is cultivated so that we may have the courage and the wisdom to finally turn and face the most challenging territory of all, our own shadow. The shadow contains all the parts of ourselves that we have judged, repressed, and denied our deepest fears, our primal anger, our raw grief, and our shame. The spiritual path is not a journey into an imagined perfect light. It is a journey toward wholeness, and that means bravely and compassionately integrating our darkness. Our typical relationship with these powerful emotions is one of two extremes. The first is suppression. We are taught that feelings like anger or intense fear are bad or unspiritual. So when they arise, we push them down, we deny them, we pretend they aren't there. But suppressed energy does not disappear. It festers in the basement of our psyche, expressing itself in other ways as chronic anxiety, depression, or sudden, inexplicable outbursts. The other extreme is unrestrained expression. We believe that venting our anger is healthy, so we indulge it, shouting, blaming, and acting it out, which often only deepens the grooves of our own reactivity and causes immense harm to others. The path of wisdom offers a third way, a middle path between suppression and indulgence. This is the path of mindful, compassionate investigation. We learn to neither run from our difficult emotions nor be swept away by them. We learn to meet them. Let us first look at the powerful energy of anger. Anger often arises with the force of a wildfire, consuming our reason and compelling us to speak and act in ways we later regret. The first step, when you feel the heat of anger begin to rise, is to practice what we have learned. Return to the anchor of the breath. Do not immediately speak. Do not immediately act. Simply breathe. Feel the rise and fall of your abdomen. This simple act creates a sacred pause, a space between the stimulus and your reaction. In this space lies your freedom. With this space, you can begin to look more deeply. The teachings suggest that anger is often a secondary emotion. It is like a fierce guard dog barking at the gate. It seems powerful and threatening, but its ferocity often comes from a desire to protect something soft and vulnerable inside. The practice, then, is not to fight the guard dog, but to ask, with genuine curiosity, what are you protecting? Beneath the hard, hot surface of anger, you will almost always find a layer of softer, more vulnerable pain. Perhaps it is the pain of being hurt, of feeling disrespected, unseen, or misunderstood. Perhaps it is the pain of fear, or the pain of powerlessness in the face of injustice. When you can touch this underlying hurt, your relationship with the anger transforms. You see it not as an enemy, but as a misguided protector, a symptom of a deeper wound that needs your attention and care. The great Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, offers a beautiful image for this practice. He teaches us to cradle our anger like a mother cradling her crying baby. When a mother hears her baby cry, she does not get angry at the baby. She does not throw the baby out of the house. She immediately stops what she is doing, goes to the baby, and picks it up with immense tenderness. She holds the baby to her heart, rocks it gently, and tries to understand what is wrong. Is the baby hungry? Is it cold? Is it in pain? This is precisely how we can learn to relate to our own anger. When the baby of anger begins to cry within you, you can stop, and with the mindfulness you have cultivated, you can pick it up tenderly. You can say to it, "I see you, my dear anger. I know you are there, and I know you are suffering. I will not abandon you. I will hold you and listen to you." By bringing the warmth of loving, kindness, and the gentle attention of mindfulness directly to the raw energy of anger, you are not suppressing it. you are metabolizing it. You are transforming its raw, destructive heat into the energy of understanding and compassion. We can approach the equally powerful energy of fear in a similar way. Fear, at its core, is almost always about the future. It is a story we tell ourselves about a terrible thing that might happen. It is fueled by our clinging to a solid sense of self, the fear of losing our possessions, our reputation, our health, our life. It is the ego's deep terror of its own inevitable dissolution. The first antidote to fear, therefore, is to come home to the present moment. Fear cannot easily survive the raw, unfiltered reality of the now. When a wave of anxiety arises, bring your attention immediately to the most solid, present things you can find. Feel your feet firmly planted on the floor. Feel the physical sensation of your breath moving in and out of your body. Notice the sounds in the room. The mind is in the future, but the body is always in the present. Anchoring your awareness in the body brings you out of the terrifying dream of what if and into the simple, manageable reality of what is. The deeper antidote to fear is the wisdom of impermanence and not self. When you have looked deeply and seen that everything is in a constant state of flux, you begin to loosen your grip. What are you so afraid of losing when nothing can truly be held anyway? When you have investigated and seen that there is no solid, separate self to protect, the object of fear becomes transparent. Who, exactly, is this I that is so afraid? Seeing this does not mean you become reckless. It means you are no longer paralyzed by the ego's primal anxieties. You can act in the world with courage and wisdom because your inner peace is no longer dependent on controlling the future. As with anger, we can also learn to meet our fear with kindness. We can recognize that fear is an ancient biological mechanism designed to protect us. We can turn to the feeling of fear within us and say, "Thank you for trying to keep me safe. I appreciate your intention. But right now, in this present moment, I am okay." This act of befriending our fear, of acknowledging its presence with compassion rather than fighting it, robs it of its power. This work of facing our shadows is the path to true psychological and spiritual maturity. It is not about becoming a perfect person who never feels anger or fear. It is about becoming a whole person, one who is no longer at war with their own inner world. It is the process of learning to hold all of our experiences, the light and the dark, the joy and the pain in the vast, open, and unconditionally loving space of our own awareness. By creating this profound integration within ourselves, we naturally begin to perceive our relationship to the world around us in a new and radically interconnected way. As the inner world becomes a place of wholeness and peace, as we learn to embrace our shadows with compassion, the very boundary between ourself and the world begins to soften. The illusion of being a separate, isolated individual, a skin-encapsulated ego, gives way to a breathtaking and transformative vision. We begin to see that the same principles of interdependence and interconnectedness that govern our inner life also govern the entire cosmos. This direct perception of the seamless fabric of reality is the insight of interbeing. It is the understanding that nothing exists by itself, for itself. Everything in existence is intimately connected to and dependent upon everything else. To grasp this intellectually is one thing. To feel it in your bones is another. Let us try a gentle contemplation inspired by the teachings of the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. Imagine, if you will, a simple sheet of paper resting in your hands. On the surface, it seems to be a single, separate object. But if we look at it with the eyes of mindfulness, we can begin to see the entire universe within it. First, we can see a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there is no rain to fall upon the earth. Without rain, a tree cannot grow, and without a tree, we cannot make paper. So the cloud is essential for the paper's existence. Now look again, and you can see the sunshine. The sunshine is also in the sheet of paper, because without the warmth and light of the sun, the tree cannot perform photosynthesis. The life of the forest is impossible without the sun. The sunshine is a part of the paper. If we continue to look, we can see the logger who cut down the tree, and we can see his axe. We can see his two hands holding the axe, and we can see his parents who gave him life. And in his parents, we can see their parents. And so all of his ancestors are also present in this sheet of paper. We can see the wheat field that produced the flour for the bread the logger ate for breakfast, and we can see the baker who made the bread and the farmer who grew the wheat. We can see the soil, the earth, and the minerals that nourished the tree. We can see the truck driver who transported the log to the mill, the people who work in the mill, and the person who sold you the paper. Everything, absolutely everything, has conspired together across space and time for this sheet of paper to be here, in your hands, in this moment. If we were to return any one of these elements to its source, if we were to give the sunshine back to the sun, the cloud back to the sky, the logger back to his parents, the sheet of paper could not exist. It is empty of a separate, independent self. Its entire being is composed of non-paper elements. It is with everything else. This principle of interbeing is the deeper, more dynamic expression of not-self. Not only is the self empty of a separate core, but everything in the universe is as well. There is another, even more ancient and cosmic image for this truth. It is the vision of Indra's net. Imagine a vast, infinite net that stretches out across all of space and time. At every single node, where the threads of the net cross, there hangs a single, multifaceted, perfectly polished jewel. The net is structured in such a way that if you look closely into the surface of any one jewel, you will see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire limitless net. Each individual jewel contains, within its own reflection, all the other jewels. Each part of the universe contains the whole. Your own consciousness, your own being, is one of these jewels. Within you is reflected all of reality, and you, in turn, are reflected in everything else. When this insight moves from a beautiful idea to a lived reality, it fundamentally changes our relationship to the world. The feeling of existential loneliness, which arises from the mistaken belief that we are a separate fragment, begins to dissolve. How can we be lonely when we are intimately connected to everything? We realize we are not a lonely wave, tossed about on the surface of the ocean. We are the ocean itself, expressing itself for a time as a wave. Our sense of responsibility is also transformed when we see that we are with the rivers and the forests. We can no longer pollute them without understanding that we are, in a very real sense, polluting ourselves. When we see that we are with the air, we cannot fill it with toxins without realizing we are poisoning our own body. Ecological awareness ceases to be a political issue and becomes a deeply personal, spiritual practice, an act of self-love and self-preservation. Our relationship with other people undergoes a similar revolution. When we truly understand that our well-being is linked to the well-being of the farmer in a distant land who grew our food, and the garment worker who stitched our clothes, then exploitation becomes a wound we inflict upon ourselves. We see that our single act of kindness can send a positive ripple throughout the entire net, and a single act of cruelty can cause a tremor of suffering that affects us all. The artificial barriers of us and them, of nation, race, and religion, are seen for what they are, illusions that obscure the deeper reality of our shared existence on this single fragile planet. Compassion becomes the most natural and logical response to a world with which we are completely interconnected. The world, seen through the eyes of interbeing, is no longer a collection of separate competing objects, but a single, seamless, and miraculously choreographed dance. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is truly separate. Everything fits. The so-called ugly and the so-called beautiful, the pain and the joy, are all part of one magnificent, self-regulating tapestry. This is not a truth we need to create. It is a truth we need only to recognize. It is the natural vision of a mind that has been quieted and clarified through the patient practice of the path. Seeing this profound unity, this sacred interconnectedness, brings us to our final contemplation. How, then, do we live our ordinary, daily lives in a way that honors this magnificent truth? How do we make every step, every breath, and every action a living expression of this boundless, interconnected peace? Having journeyed to the furthest reaches of the cosmos with the vision of Indra's net, having seen the profound truth that we are seamlessly interwoven with all of existence, we now return. We return to the simple, humble, and sacred ground of this present moment, because it is only here, in our ordinary lives, that this vast wisdom can be truly lived. The goal of this path is not to escape the world, but to learn how to live in it with grace, wisdom, and a fully awakened heart. And the way we do this is by weaving the thread of mindfulness into every single activity of our day, transforming the mundane into the sacred. This is the practice of living a life of awareness. There is a timeless Zen story that captures this truth perfectly. A young, eager disciple went to a great master and asked, "What is the secret to enlightenment?" The master replied, "I eat when I am hungry, and I sleep when I am tired." The disciple was confused. "But isn't that what everyone does?" he asked. The master smiled. "No," he said. "When most people eat, they are not really eating. They are thinking of 1,000 other things. When they sleep, they are not really sleeping. They are dreaming 1,000 dreams. When I eat, I just eat. When I sleep, I just sleep." In another version of this wisdom, a seeker spends years searching for enlightenment, only to return home and realize that, before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I chop wood and carry water. The profound message is this: liberation is not found in doing extraordinary, superhuman things. It is found in doing ordinary, human things with an extraordinary quality of presence. The enlightened mind is not one that has escaped from life, but one that is fully, completely, and uncomplicatedly present for life, just as it is. The formal practice of sitting meditation is the essential training ground. It is where we develop the muscle of mindfulness. But the real test, the real practice, is when we get up from the cushion and carry that mindful awareness with us into our day. You can begin with the simple act of walking. Most of the time, we walk to get somewhere. Our body is here, but our mind is already at the destination, planning, worrying, rehearsing. We can transform this. We can practice walking meditation. As you walk, bring your attention to the soles of your feet. Feel the sensation of your foot lifting, moving through the air, and then making contact with the ground. Feel the solid earth beneath you, supporting you with every step. You are not trying to get anywhere. Each step is an arrival. Each step is your destination. With every step, you can say to yourself, "I have arrived. I am home. You can practice with the act of eating. So often, we eat mindlessly in front of a screen, barely tasting our food. We can transform eating into a profound meditation on into being. Before you take the first bite, you can look at the food on your plate and see, just as we saw in the sheet of paper, the entire universe. You can see the sun, the rain, and the earth. You can see the farmer who grew the vegetables and the truck driver who brought them to the store. You can feel a sense of gratitude for all the causes and conditions that have brought this nourishment to you. Then, as you eat, you can chew slowly. Pay attention to the textures, the flavors, the aromas. When you eat in this way, you are not just consuming calories. You are deeply nourishing your body and your spirit, and you are renewing your intimate connection with the earth. You can practice mindful listening. When you are in conversation with another person, the common habit is to only half listen, while the other part of your mind is busy formulating your reply, waiting for your turn to speak. The practice of deep, mindful listening is to offer the other person the greatest gift you can give them, your full, undivided presence. You listen not with the intention to reply, but with the sole intention to understand. You listen to their words, and you listen to the silence between their words. You listen to their body language. In doing so, you create a space of safety and respect that can transform the quality of your relationships. Even the most mundane household chores can become your spiritual practice. When you are washing the dishes, you can resist the urge to escape into daydreams or worries. Instead, you can bring your full attention to the act of washing. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands. See the soap bubbles shimmering with light. Hear the sound of the water. When you wash the dishes, just to wash the dishes, the task is no longer a tedious chore. It becomes a peaceful and contemplative ritual. The same is true for folding laundry, sweeping the floor, or making your bed. Every moment is an opportunity to come home to yourself. This is the ultimate meaning of the phrase, "The path is the goal." We have a tendency to think of peace, or liberation, or enlightenment as some grand destination at the end of a long and difficult road. We strive and struggle, hoping to one day arrive. But this is a subtle trap of the mind, another form of placing our happiness in the future. The deepest wisdom of the path is that every step on the path is an expression of the goal. Every conscious breath is a moment of freedom. Every act of kindness is a moment of enlightenment. Every time you bring your wandering mind back to the present with gentleness, you have arrived. The journey we have taken together through these teachings is not about becoming a perfect, passionless saint. It is about becoming a more awake, a more compassionate, and a more fully alive human being. It is about learning to live in this beautiful, chaotic, and impermanent world with a heart that is open, a mind that is clear, and a spirit that is free. There is no grand finale, no ultimate graduation. There is only the continuous, moment-to-moment practice of waking up to the life that is right here, right now. This is the path, and this is the destination. They are one and the same. Our long journey through the quiet landscapes of the mind now draws to a close. We began together in the dark, in that restless space of a sleepless night, feeling the subtle agitations of a mind that could not find its home. We began by bravely acknowledging this universal feeling of dissatisfaction, this dukkha, not as a personal failing, but as a fundamental truth of the human condition. From there, we walked a timeless path. We looked into the heart of our own unease and found its cause in the grasping, thirsty nature of the mind. We were then shown a great hope, the possibility of an end to this inner turmoil, a peace called nirvana, and we were given the map to that peace, the Noble Eightfold Path. We learn to ground our lives in a foundation of ethical conduct, making our speech, our actions, and our livelihood a source of harmlessness in the world. We then turned inward, learning to tune the strings of our effort, to sharpen the focus of our mindfulness, and to gather the scattered rays of our mind into the serene, unified state of concentration. With this clear and steady mind, we could see for ourselves the great truths of existence, the constant flow of impermanence, the transparent illusion of a separate self, and the profound, beautiful reality of our interconnection with all of life. We saw that enlightenment is not a grand, distant event, but something woven into the fabric of our most ordinary moments, in the way we walk, the way we eat, the way we listen. If there is one essential truth to carry with you from this journey into the stillness of your own heart, let it be this: peace is not a destination you must struggle to reach. It is not something you need to acquire, to earn, or to deserve. It is not waiting for you in a different place, a different job, or a different set of circumstances. Peace is your fundamental nature. It is the vast, open, and silent sky of awareness that is always, already here. The stress, the anxiety, the anger, the fear, these are merely clouds, weather patterns that drift through the sky of your mind. They are temporary visitors. They are not you. The entire practice is simply learning to rest as the sky, allowing the clouds to come and go without resistance, knowing that behind even the darkest storm, the clear, luminous sky remains, untouched and undiminished. You do not need to become someone else to find this peace. You have, within you, at this very moment, all the seeds you will ever need. The seed of wisdom to see clearly, the seed of compassion to love boundlessly, and the seed of mindfulness to be fully present for your life. These teachings have not given you anything new. They have simply been like water and sunlight and gentle care offered to help these seeds, which have been dormant within you all along, to finally sprout and grow. So as these words fade and you drift into the quiet ocean of sleep, let go of all striving. Trust in the sanctuary of your own being. The peace you seek is not somewhere out there. It is the very ground upon which you are resting. You have already arrived. You are already home.